When a broken arm becomes your only chance at freedom, who do you call? A stranger who terrifies you, or the monster you know will kill you? Tonight, Ava Carter faces that impossible choice. For 5 years, she's survived Ryan's fists, his rage, his control. But survival isn't living, it's dying slowly. Now, trapped in a bathroom with a shattered arm and Ryan's footsteps closing in, she holds a card from the city's most dangerous man. One call could save her, or condemn her to something worse. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The bathroom door shuddered with each impact. Ava Carter pressed her back against the cold tile wall, her left arm cradled against her chest like a broken bird. The pain radiated from her elbow in waves, sharp, unrelenting, turning her stomach with each shallow breath. Through the thin wood door, she could hear Ryan's voice, low and venomous. "Open the door, Ava." 3 words. Simple. Terrifying. She'd heard that tone before. Too many times. It was the voice he used when the rage had burned past shouting, past throwing things, past the initial explosion. This was the cold anger, the methodical fury that followed. This was when Ryan became truly dangerous. Ava looked down at her arm. The swelling had already started, distorting the shape of her forearm. She'd felt something snap when she'd raised her hands to protect her face, when Ryan's boot had connected with her elbow instead of her ribs. A strange mercy, that. Better a broken arm than broken ribs. Better anything than what he'd promised to do to her face. "I know you can hear me." Ryan's voice dropped lower, almost conversational. "You think locking yourself in there changes anything? You think I won't get in?" The door frame creaked. He was leaning against it now, testing the lock's strength. Ava's right hand trembled as she pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen was cracked, from when Ryan had thrown it across the room 2 days ago during their last fight. But it still worked. Barely. 3% battery. Her mind raced through options she'd considered 1,000 times before. Call the police? She'd tried that once, 2 years ago. Ryan had charmed the responding officers, shown them his spotless record, his respectable job at his father's law firm. He'd explained so reasonably how Ava struggled with anxiety, how she sometimes hurt herself for attention. The officers had looked at her with pity and suspicion, had told Ryan to take care of her, and left. Ryan had taken care of her all right. For 3 days she couldn't sit without wincing. Call her mother? Her phone had been dead to her for 4 years since Ryan convinced her that Ava's family was toxic, that they'd never understood her, that he was all she needed. The isolation had been so gradual, so careful, that by the time Ava realized she was completely alone, the bridges were already burned. Call a friend? What friends? Ryan had systematically dismantled every relationship she'd had. Casual acquaintances from work didn't count. They knew Ava and Ryan, the couple. They didn't know the truth. Bang! Ryan's fist hit the door hard enough to make the hinges rattle. "Stop playing games, Ava. You're only making this worse for yourself." Her hand shook as she opened her contacts. The list was pathetically short. Ryan, Ryan's mother, her supervisor at work, the pizza place they ordered from, and one more. Her thumb hovered over the name, Luca Romano. She shouldn't even have this number. She should have thrown away the business card the moment that strange encounter ended 3 months ago. It had been raining, one of those sudden summer storms that turned Chicago streets into rivers. Ava had been walking home from work, soaked through, when a car had nearly hit her as she crossed the intersection. She'd stumbled back onto the curb, her bag falling into a puddle, its contents scattering. The car, a sleek black SUV, had stopped. For a terrifying moment, she thought the driver was going to yell at her. Instead, the back door had opened, and a man had stepped out. He was tall, probably 6'2", dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ava made in 3 months. Dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to catalog everything about her in a single glance. "Are you hurt?" His voice had been smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "No, I'm fine." Ava had knelt to gather her scattered belongings, her wallet, her work badge, the novel she'd been reading on her lunch breaks. The man had crouched beside her, helping collect her things with movements that were somehow both casual and precise. When his fingers brushed against hers as he handed her the book, she'd felt a strange jolt. Not attraction exactly, but awareness. This was someone important, someone dangerous, maybe. Thank you, she'd mumbled, taking her things. He'd studied her face for a moment longer than was comfortable. You're certain you're not injured? Yes, really, I'm okay. He'd pulled a card from his jacket pocket and held it out, in case you change your mind. Or if you need anything. Ava had taken the card reflexively, too flustered to refuse. By the time she'd looked down at it, heavy stock, minimalist design, just a name and a phone number, the man was back in his SUV and the vehicle was pulling away. Luca Romano. She'd looked him up that night, in those few minutes when Ryan was in the shower and couldn't monitor her phone. What she'd found had made her blood run cold. Luca Romano wasn't just wealthy. He was Chicago's shadow king, the man whose name appeared in whispered conversations but never in court documents. Real estate, construction, private security, legitimate businesses that probably served as fronts for things that weren't legitimate at all. The articles she'd found called him reclusive, influential, and most disturbingly, untouchable. She should have thrown the card away immediately, but she hadn't. Something had made her slip it into the hidden pocket of her wallet, the small compartment where she kept her emergency cash, the money Ryan didn't know about, bills she'd been skimming from grocery money for 2 years, her pathetic attempt at building an escape fund. Now, locked in a bathroom with a broken arm and a dying phone, that card was the only option left. Crack! The door frame splintered. Ryan was kicking it now, methodical strikes at the weakest point near the lock. Ava's fingers moved before her mind could stop them. She pulled up the contact, her thumb hovering over the call button. What would she even say? Help me, I'm being beaten by my boyfriend. Would he laugh? Would he even remember her? Why had he given her his card in the first place? Another kick. The wood groaned. Ava pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Please answer. Yes? The voice was exactly as she remembered. Calm, controlled, unmistakably his. Mr. Romano? Her voice came out as barely a whisper, a pause. I remember you. The woman in the rain. How did he... Ava pushed the question aside. I need help. Where are you? The door shuddered with another impact. I'm at home. My boyfriend, he's... She didn't need to finish. The sound of splintering wood filled the bathroom. Address? Luca's voice had shifted, taking on an edge of command that brooked no argument. Ava rattled off her address, her words tumbling over each other. Lock yourself in the smallest room. Stay away from the door. I'm 15 minutes away. He's breaking through now. I don't have... Ava. His use of her name stopped her panic. Listen to me. You've survived this long. Survive 15 more minutes. Can you do that? Something in his voice steadied her. Not comfort exactly, but certainty. As if her survival was already a foregone conclusion, she just needed to play her part. Yes. Good. Stay on the line. The door gave way with a final crack. The lock held, but the frame around it had splintered enough for Ryan to get his fingers through the gap. Ava scrambled backward, pressing herself into the corner between the toilet and the wall. It wasn't much of a hiding spot, but it was the furthest point from the door. Ava! Ryan's face appeared in the gap, contorted with rage. You called someone? Who the fuck did you call? She didn't answer, couldn't answer. Terror had locked her throat. Ryan's arm shoved through the gap, groping for the lock's interior mechanism. His fingers found it, twisted. The lock disengaged with a soft click. The door swung open. Ryan stood in the doorway, breathing hard. His shirt was rumpled, his knuckles bloody from pounding on the door. He was a handsome man, objectively, tall, athletic, with the kind of clean-cut features that photographed well at company events. His father's son, people said, destined for partnership at the firm. No one saw this side of him. The fury barely contained beneath the surface, the cruelty that emerged when he felt his control slipping. Who did you call? He repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. No one, Ava whispered. His eyes dropped to the phone still clutched in her good hand. In 2 quick strides, he crossed the small bathroom and grabbed it from her. You're a terrible liar, Ava. He looked at the screen. His expression darkened. Luca Romano? Who the fuck is Luca Romano? Just someone who helped me once. Ryan's hand shot out, grabbing her broken arm. The pain was so intense that Ava's vision went white. She heard herself screaming as if from a great distance. You think you can call other men? You think I don't see what you're doing? Ryan's face was inches from hers, spittle flying with each word. You're mine, Ava. Mine, no one else's. You don't talk to other men. You don't… Ryan. The voice came from Ava's phone, which Ryan still held. Luca's voice, calm and cold. You have approximately 12 minutes to leave that apartment. I suggest you use them. Ryan stared at the phone in disbelief. Then he laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Oh, this is rich. You called your sugar daddy to save you? He held the phone up to his ear. Listen, buddy. I don't know what Ava's been telling you, but she's my girlfriend. This is a domestic situation. It's none of your… 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Are you threatening me? Do you know who my father is? One call and I can have… Your father is Marcus Brennan, senior partner at Brennan, Chase & Associates, Harvard Law, class of 1985. He golfs at Medina Country Club on Saturday mornings and has a standing reservation at Gibson's on Friday nights. Luca's voice never lost its measured calm. 11 minutes, 10 seconds. Ryan's face had gone pale. How do you… Your mother's name is Patricia. She volunteers at Northwestern Memorial Hospital on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Your sister Jennifer lives in Boston with her husband and 2 children. You have a wine-colored birthmark on your left shoulder blade and a scar on your right knee from a skiing accident in Aspen when you were 16. The color drained completely from Ryan's face. 10 minutes, 45 seconds. Every second you remain in that apartment, the consequences become more severe. I suggest you consider your choices very carefully. Ryan dropped the phone like it had burned him. He looked at Ava, and for the first time she could remember, she saw fear in his eyes. But fear, in men like Ryan, quickly curdled into rage. This isn't over, he said, his voice shaking. You think running to some criminal is going to save you? He'll use you and throw you away. At least 10 minutes, 15 seconds. Luca's voice floated up from the phone on the floor, implacable as death. Ryan backed toward the door, his eyes still locked on Ava. This isn't over, he repeated. Then he turned and stormed out. Ava heard the apartment door slam, then silence. She sat frozen in the corner, unable to process what had just happened. Her arm throbbed with each heartbeat. Her whole body was shaking. Ava. Luca's voice, gentle now. Are you still there? With her good hand, she reached for the phone. Yes? Is he gone? Yes. Can you walk? I think so. Good. I need you to do something for me. Can you get to your bedroom? Why? You'll need clothes. Pack a bag if you can. Essentials only. Medications, documents, anything you can't replace. I don't understand. You're not staying in that apartment tonight, or any night. He knows where you live, and he's angry. Men like him don't let go easily. The calm certainty in his voice made her shiver. Where am I supposed to go? Somewhere safe. We'll discuss details when I arrive. 8 minutes now. Can you pack? Ava looked down at her arm. I can't use my left hand. Then use your right. One bag. Whatever you can manage. Quickly now. Something in his tone made her move. She hauled herself to her feet, using the toilet for support. The bathroom spun, but she pushed through it. Her bedroom looked like a crime scene. Ryan had been looking for her phone before she'd locked herself in the bathroom. Drawers had been yanked open, their contents scattered. Her closet door hung askew. Ava grabbed the small duffel bag she used for the gym, back when Ryan still let her go to the gym. With one hand, packing was nearly impossible, but she managed to stuff in some underwear, a few shirts, jeans, her toothbrush from the bathroom, the photo album from her childhood hidden in the back of the closet. She paused at her desk. Her laptop sat there, but Ryan had installed monitoring software on it months ago. Nothing on it was private anymore. She left it. Her documents were in the file box on the top shelf. She stood on her toes, reaching for it, and gasped as the movement jarred her broken arm. The box tumbled down, paper scattering everywhere. 6 minutes, Luca's voice reminded her. Ava knelt awkwardly, gathering the important things. Her birth certificate, her social security card, her passport. She'd forgotten she even had one. She shoved them all into the front pocket of the duffel. At the bottom of the file box, her fingers found the envelope. Her escape fund. $2,347 in 20s and 10s, carefully accumulated over 2 years of lies and secret economies. She took it. "I'm packed," she said to the phone. "Good. Now get out of the apartment. Wait in the lobby." "What if he comes back?" "He won't. Not in the next 5 minutes. And I'm closer now." Ava shouldered the duffel bag and walked out of the apartment without looking back. She didn't lock the door. It didn't matter anymore. The elevator ride down to the lobby felt endless. Ava watched the floor numbers descend, each ding of the bell making her flinch. What if Ryan was waiting in the lobby? What if he'd just driven around the block, working up his courage to come back? But the lobby was empty except for Harold, the night doorman, who looked up from his phone with a startled expression. "Ms. Carter? Are you all right?" "Your arm." "I'm fine, Harold, just waiting for a ride." He didn't look convinced, but he also didn't press. In a building like this, discretion was part of the job. Ava positioned herself near the door where she could see the street. Her phone battery was down to 1%. "Still there?" Luca's voice. "Yes." 2 minutes. Ava's legs felt weak. The adrenaline that had carried her this far was fading, leaving only pain and exhaustion in its wake. She leaned against the wall, cradling her arm. "Mr. Romano?" "Luca." "Luca, why are you doing this? You don't know me. We met once, for maybe 5 minutes." Silence stretched between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost contemplative. "When I was young, my mother was in a situation similar to yours. No one helped her. I've never forgotten what that cost." Another pause. "And I don't forget faces, Ava. When you're in my city, afraid and alone, and I can do something about it, I do." Before Ava could process that, headlights swept across the lobby windows. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, the same one from that rainy day. "I'm here," Luca said. The back door opened and he stepped out. If anything, he was more imposing than she remembered. The suit was different, dark blue instead of charcoal, but the presence was the same. Commanding, absolute. Harold had straightened up, his casual slouch replaced by something like military attention. Ava noticed he didn't question Luca's arrival or ask his business. He simply opened the lobby door with a murmur of, "Sir." Luca's eyes found Ava immediately. They traveled from her face to her cradled arm, and something flickered in his expression, there and gone too quickly to read. "Let's get you out of here, Mutt," he said. He reached for her bag. Ava let him take it, too exhausted to protest. His other hand settled lightly on her back, guiding her toward the door. "Wait," she said. "My phone." It had died, the screen going black in her hand. "I'll get you a new one," Luca said. "Come on." The SUV was warm inside, the leather seats soft. A man sat in the driver's seat, older, with silver hair, and the bearing of someone who'd seen combat. He nodded at Ava but didn't speak. Luca slid in beside her and closed the door. "Northwestern Memorial," he told the driver, then to Ava. "Your arm needs medical attention. I can't afford—" "You're not paying." The SUV pulled away from the curb smoothly. Ava watched her building recede through the window, the building where she'd lived for 4 years, where every wall held a memory of fear or pain, or the brief, precious moments when Ryan had been kind and she'd let herself believe it would get better. "You're shaking." Luca's voice pulled her attention back. She was. Her whole body trembled despite the warmth of the car. Luca shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Leather, maybe, or gun oil. "The shock will pass," he said. "You're safe now." Ava wanted to believe him, but she'd learned the hard way that safety was an illusion, a temporary state that could shatter with one wrong word or misplaced look. "He'll come looking for me," she whispered. "Let him." Luca's voice was cold again, the warmth from a moment ago locked away. "Let him come." The certainty in those words should have frightened her. Instead, for reasons she couldn't quite explain, they brought comfort. At Northwestern Memorial, Luca didn't take her through the emergency room entrance. Instead, the SUV pulled around to a private entrance at the back. A woman in scrubs was waiting, mid-40s, with kind eyes and an efficient manner. Dr. Sarah Chen, she introduced herself. Let's take a look at that arm. The examination room was quiet and private. Dr. Chen worked quickly, her questions clinical and non-judgmental. X-rays confirmed what Ava already knew. Her ulna was fractured. Clean break, Dr. Chen said, showing Ava the image. We'll set it and cast it. You'll need to follow up in 6 weeks, but it should heal well. How much will this cost? Ava asked quietly. Dr. Chen glanced at someone behind Ava. She turned and found Luca leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching silently. Don't worry about the cost, Dr. Chen said. Just focus on healing. The setting and casting took an hour. They gave her something for the pain. Not heavy narcotics, just enough to take the edge off. By the time Dr. Chen finished, Ava's arm was encased in a blue fiberglass cast from knuckles to elbow. Any other injuries I should know about? Dr. Chen asked gently. Ava shook her head. Not tonight. The bruises on her ribs were old, already fading from purple to yellow-green. The marks on her wrists where Ryan had grabbed her last week were barely visible now. Okay. Doctor. Chen handed her a prescription, pain medication, anti-inflammatory. Take them as directed. And Ava? She waited until Ava met her eyes. You did the right thing getting out. Whatever comes next, remember that. Tears pricked at Ava's eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you. When they left the examination room, Luca was on his phone, speaking in rapid Italian. He ended the call when he saw her. How do you feel? Tired. It was the truest thing she'd said all night. Come on, let's get you somewhere you can rest. The SUV was waiting. As they pulled away from the hospital, Ava watched the city lights blur past her window. It was past midnight now. She should have been exhausted, but her mind was racing with questions. Where are we going? She finally asked. My home. It's the safest place in the city right now. Alarm flared through her. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. I have more space than I know what to do with, and you need somewhere Ryan can't find you. Luca's voice was matter of fact. We'll figure out long-term arrangements tomorrow. Tonight, you need sleep and safety. I can provide both. Ava wanted to argue, but she was too tired. And he was right. She had nowhere else to go, no friends to call, no family who would answer. The women's shelter she'd looked up once was across town and required 48 hours' notice. Just tonight, she said. Just tonight, Luca agreed, but something in his tone suggested he didn't quite believe it either. They drove north, leaving the familiar streets of her neighborhood behind. The buildings grew taller, more expensive. They crossed the river, passed through downtown, and continued north into neighborhoods Ava had only read about in magazines. Finally, the SUV turned through a gate that opened automatically. The driveway curved through manicured grounds before stopping in front of a stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the Italian countryside. Home, Luca said simply. The interior was both opulent and surprisingly tasteful. No tacky gold fixtures or Baroque excess, just clean lines, quality materials, and art that was probably worth more than Ava had earned in her entire life. A woman appeared from a side corridor, late 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Rosa, this is Ava. She'll be staying in the guest suite. She's had a difficult night. Rosa's gaze took in Ava's cast, her disheveled appearance, and something softened in her expression. Come, dear, let's get you settled. Luca touched Ava's shoulder lightly. Rosa will take care of you. If you need anything at all, just ask. I'll be in my study if you want to talk. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading down a hallway. Rosa led Ava up a curved staircase to the second floor. The guest suite is this way. You'll have your own bathroom, a sitting room, everything you need. The suite was larger than Ava's entire apartment. The bed alone could have slept 4 people. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the grounds. There are clothes in the closet that should fit you, Rosa said. We keep a selection for guests. Tomorrow, we can get you anything else you need. For tonight, just rest. Rosa? Ava's voice came out small. Is Luca dangerous? Rosa smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Yes, but not to you, never to you. Mr. Romano has many rules he lives by, but the first is this. Those under his protection are sacred. You're safe here, child. Safer than you've been in a very long time." With that cryptic reassurance, Rosa left. Ava stood in the middle of the suite, her duffel bag at her feet, and felt the weight of the night finally crash down on her. Her legs gave out and she sank onto the edge of the bed, her good hand covering her face. She should cry. She should feel something. Relief, fear, gratitude, anything. Instead, there was only numbness and a question that kept circling through her mind. What had she just done? She'd escaped one dangerous man and put herself in the debt of another. Luca Romano, crime boss. She'd read the articles. She knew what he was. But Ryan had been a respectable lawyer from a good family, and he'd broken her in pieces. Maybe monsters came in different forms. Ava pulled off her shoes with one hand and lay back on the bed without bothering to change. The ceiling above her was painted with some kind of classical scene, cherubs and clouds, probably worth a fortune. Her phone was dead. She had no way to call anyone, even if there was someone to call. She was completely alone in a stranger's house, dependent on his mercy. It should have terrified her. Instead, for the first time in 5 years, Ava fell asleep without wondering if she'd wake up to fists and fury. The nightmare, when it came, was familiar. Ryan's face contorted with rage, the sound of breaking glass, her own voice, pleading, always pleading. But this time when Ryan lunged, a door slammed shut between them, and on her side of the door stood a figure in a charcoal suit, his back to her, an immovable wall. Ava woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a disoriented moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory crashed back. Ryan, the bathroom, the call, Luca. She sat up slowly, her arm throbbing despite the pain medication. The cast felt strange, heavy. Someone had left a tray on the side table, coffee, still hot, and pastries that looked freshly baked. A note in elegant script. "Take your time. Come down when you're ready." R. Rosa, she assumed. Ava made her way to the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. She looked like hell. Her hair tangled, dark circles under her eyes, and a bruise blooming on her cheek that she didn't remember getting. There was indeed a closet full of clothes, organized by size. Ava found jeans and a soft sweater that fit reasonably well. Getting dressed one-handed was harder than she'd expected, but she managed. When she finally ventured downstairs, she followed the sound of voices to a bright kitchen that looked like something from a cooking show. Rosa was there, along with a younger woman who was chopping vegetables. And at the table, reading a newspaper over a cup of espresso, sat Luca. He looked up when Ava entered. Today, he wore black slacks and a white shirt, no tie. The sleeves rolled to his elbows. Somehow he looked both more casual and more dangerous than he had in the suit. "Good morning. How's the arm?" "Sore." "Sit. Rosa will make you breakfast." "I'm not really hungry." "You need to eat." Not a suggestion. Ava sat. Rosa set a plate in front of her. Eggs, toast, fruit. Despite her protest, Ava found herself eating. Everything tasted better than anything she'd cooked in years. Luca folded his newspaper. "We need to discuss next steps. I should probably find a hotel. Ryan will check hotels, he'll call in favors, use his father's connections. Hotels aren't safe." "Then what am I supposed to do? I can't stay here indefinitely." "Why not?" The question threw her. Because I can't. I can't be in your debt like that." "You're not in my debt. I made a choice to help. That doesn't obligate you to me." Luca's dark eyes studied her. "But you're right that this can't be a permanent solution. We need to make sure Ryan understands that you're untouchable now." "How?" "Let me worry about that. For today, I want you to rest. Tomorrow, we'll start building your new life." "My new life?" Ava set down her fork. "I have a job. You have a job at a law firm where Ryan's father is senior partner. How long do you think you'll keep that position once Ryan starts whispering in the right ears?" The truth of that hit her like a slap. She hadn't thought that far ahead. Of course, Ryan wouldn't let her keep her job. He'd poison that well the first chance he got. "I have savings, $2,347. Luca's expression was neutral. "It's not enough. Not for first and last month's rent, deposits, furniture. Not if you want to stay in Chicago." "How do you know how much—" Ava stopped. Of course he knew. He'd probably gone through her bag while she slept, cataloged everything she owned. The thought should have angered her, but she was too exhausted for anger. "I'm not trying to trap you," Luca said quietly. "I'm trying to help you see the situation clearly. You left everything behind last night, your apartment, your job, your old life. You can't go back. Ryan won't let you. So the question is, what do you want your new life to look like?" Ava stared at her plate. "I don't know." "Then take some time to figure it out. You're welcome here as long as you need. No strings, no obligations. When you're ready to stand on your own, I'll help you do that too." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why do you care? I'm nobody to you." Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd heard it. "Because I can. Because I have resources most people don't. Because I remember what it looks like when someone is drowning and no one throws them a rope." He stood, picking up his espresso cup. "Rest, Ava. Heal. Everything else can wait." He left her alone in the kitchen with Rosa, who clucked sympathetically and refilled Ava's coffee. "He's a good man," Rosa said. "People don't always see it, but he is." Ava wasn't sure if good was the right word for Luca Romano. But as she sat in his kitchen, safe and fed and free from fear for the first time in years, she thought maybe good didn't matter as much as effective. The day passed in a strange haze. Ava slept, woke, ate when Rosa insisted, and slept again. Her body was catching up on years of hypervigilance, finally allowing itself to rest. In the evening, Luca knocked on her door. "There's someone here to see you." Ava's heart seized. "Ryan?" "No, a lawyer. If you're ready to talk to her." "A lawyer? I don't understand." "You'll need a restraining order, probably other legal protections. I've retained someone who specializes in this kind of case." "I can't afford. I'm paying for it. Luca, I can't let you "You can, and you will." His voice was firm. "This isn't charity, Ava. This is strategy. Ryan needs to understand that you're not alone anymore, that you have resources he can't match. Fear is the only language men like him understand." The lawyer was a woman in her 50s named Margaret Reeves, with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen everything twice. She spent an hour taking Ava's statement, her questions direct and unapologetic. "I'll file for the restraining order first thing Monday morning," Margaret said when they finished. "Given the evidence, the broken arm, the threats, we should get a temporary order immediately. I'm also going to pursue criminal charges." "Criminal charges?" Ava's voice shook. "He'll fight it. His father's influence extends only so far. And trust me, once the legal machinery starts moving, Marcus Brennan will be more interested in protecting his firm's reputation than his son's freedom." Margaret's smile was sharp. Men like Ryan rely on their victims being too afraid to fight back. You're fighting back. That changes everything. After Margaret left, Ava found Luca on the back terrace. He stood at the railing, looking out over the darkening grounds, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Thank you," Ava said, "for the lawyer, for all of this. You don't need to thank me." "I do, though." She moved to stand beside him, careful to leave space between them. "I just don't understand why you're doing it." Luca took a sip of his whiskey. "When I was 10, my father was killed. Business dispute. It left my mother alone with 3 children and a lot of dangerous questions being asked." He stared out at the darkness. "She had no protection, no resources. The people who killed my father made it clear that we were next if she talked. She lived in fear for 2 years before she finally found someone willing to stand between her and them." "What happened?" "She got free, built a new life, raised her children." Luca's jaw tightened. But those 2 years broke something in her. She was never the same. I watched fear hollow her out from the inside. He turned to look at Ava, and his eyes were fierce. "I can't give my mother those years back. But when I see someone else in that same situation, someone I have the power to help." He shrugged. "It's not complicated. You needed help. I could provide it, so I did." Ava felt tears prickling her eyes. "I don't know how to repay you." "Don't. Just rebuild your life. Be happy. That's payment enough." They stood in silence for a while, watching the night settle over the city. Finally, Ava spoke. "What happens next? With Ryan?" "He'll test the boundaries. Try to contact you, probably. We'll document everything, use it to strengthen the restraining order. Luca's voice was calm, clinical. Eventually he'll realize he can't win, and he'll move on. And if he doesn't? Luca's smile was cold. Then he'll learn why most people in this city know better than to cross me. The words should have frightened Ava. Instead, they made her feel something she'd almost forgotten, protected. That night, she lay in the enormous guest bed and thought about the strange turn her life had taken. 24 hours ago, she'd been trapped in a bathroom, certain she was going to die. Now she was in a mansion, protected by a crime boss, with lawyers filing papers in her defense. It felt surreal, impossible. But the cast on her arm was real. The absence of fear in her chest was real. And somewhere in the house below, Luca Romano sat in his study, making calls and moving pieces on a chessboard Ava was only beginning to understand. She should be afraid of him. Everything she knew about him screamed danger. But when Ryan's face appeared in her mind, twisted with rage, promising violence, it was Luca's calm voice she heard. "You're safe now." And against all logic, all reason, Ava believed him. Outside her window, the city glittered in the darkness. Chicago, the city that had been her prison for 5 years, suddenly looked different. Bigger. Full of possibility. Ava closed her eyes and let herself imagine, for the first time in years, what freedom might actually feel like. The morning came too early, sunlight piercing through the curtains Ava had forgotten to close. She blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling, the silence, the absence of Ryan's breathing beside her. Then reality settled back into place. The cast on her arm, the mansion, Luca Romano. Freedom felt strange, like a language she'd once known but had forgotten how to speak. Rosa knocked softly before entering with a breakfast tray. "Mr. Romano asked me to tell you he has some business to attend to this morning, but he'll be back this afternoon. He wondered if you'd join him for dinner." "I don't want to be any trouble." "No trouble at all, dear. He enjoys the company." Rosa set the tray down and studied Ava with grandmotherly concern. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years." It was true. No nightmares, no jerking awake at every sound, just deep, dreamless black. After Rosa left, Ava ate slowly, thinking about what Luca had said about rebuilding her life. The truth was, she didn't know where to start. Everything she'd been for the past 5 years had been defined by Ryan. His needs, his moods, his control. Without him, who was she? The question terrified her. She spent the morning exploring the mansion's library, a 2-story room with floor-to-ceiling shelves and a rolling ladder like something from a movie. The books were organized meticulously, ranging from first-edition classics to contemporary fiction. Ava ran her fingers along the spines, marveling at the collection. She pulled down a worn copy of Jane Eyre and settled into a leather armchair by the window. Reading had been one of her escapes during the worst times with Ryan, those stolen moments when he was at work and she could disappear into someone else's story. This felt different, though, safer. No listening for the door. No hiding the book when footsteps approached. She was 3 chapters in when her temporary peace shattered. The doorbell rang, sharp, insistent. Rosa's footsteps echoed in the hall, then voices. One of them was familiar enough to make Ava's blood run cold. Ryan. She set down the book with trembling hands. Every instinct screamed at her to hide, to find a closet or a bathroom and lock herself in. But she forced herself to stay seated, to breathe. "You're safe here." Luca said so. But Luca wasn't here. The voices grew louder, Rosa's tone firm and unyielding. "Sir, I've already told you, you need to leave. This is private property. I just want to talk to Ava. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Ryan's voice strained with false reasonableness. "Please. I know she's here. I just want to apologize." Ava's hands clenched in her lap. She knew that tone. The contrite boyfriend, full of remorse and promises to change. She'd fallen for it a dozen times before. Not this time. She stood and walked to the library entrance, staying just out of sight. Through the crack in the door, she could see the foyers. Rosa stood blocking the entrance, her slight frame somehow formidable. Behind her, 2 men Ava hadn't noticed before flanked the doorway. Security, she realized. They hadn't been there yesterday, or she'd simply been too exhausted to notice. Ryan stood on the front step, looking haggard. His shirt was wrinkled, his jaw unshaven. He'd probably been up all night, working himself into this desperate state. I'm sorry, sir, but you need to leave now, Rosa repeated. Look, I don't know what Ava told you people, but there's been a misunderstanding. She's my girlfriend. We had a fight, that's all. Couples fight. It doesn't mean... It means you broke her arm. The new voice made everyone turn. Luca stood at the top of the driveway, apparently having just arrived. He moved with unhurried confidence, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. The two security men straightened slightly at his appearance. Ryan's face went through several emotions: surprise, calculation, fear. He settled on indignation. This is none of your business. This is between me and Ava. The moment she called me from your bathroom while you tried to break down the door, it became my business. Luca stopped a few feet from Ryan, close enough to be intimidating without being overtly threatening. The moment you put your hands on someone under my protection, you made it my business. Your protection? Ryan laughed, but it came out shaky. You don't even know her. What, did she promise you something? Is that it? Because I'm warning you, Ava's not what she seems. She's manipulative. She lies. Stop talking. 2 words, said quietly, but they cut through Ryan's tirade like a knife. Luca's expression hadn't changed, but something in his stillness radiated danger. You have 2 choices, Luca continued in that same measured tone. You can leave now, voluntarily, and accept that Ava is done with you. Or you can keep talking, keep trying to justify what you did, and discover exactly how far my patience extends. Ryan's hands clenched at his sides. You're threatening me? Do you know who my father is? Marcus Brennan. We've established this. Your father is a lawyer. I'm sure he's explained to you by now that legal influence has limits. Luca tilted his head slightly. Tell me, Ryan, did he also explain what happens when you antagonize people who operate outside those limits? The color drained from Ryan's face. You can't. I can do many things. The question is whether you're foolish enough to make me demonstrate. Luca's voice dropped lower. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to stop trying to contact Ava. You're going to accept the restraining order that will be filed Monday morning, and you're going to stay far, far away from her. In exchange, I'll refrain from making your life significantly more difficult than it's about to become. This is insane. I have rights. You had rights. You forfeited them when you broke her arm. Luca took a single step forward. Ryan instinctively stepped back. Leave. Now. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't send messages through mutual friends. Don't even think about her. Because if you do, if you violate the restraining order or make any attempt to contact her, I will consider it a personal affront. And Ryan? He smiled, and it was the coldest thing Ava had ever seen. You really don't want to affront me. For a moment, Ryan looked like he might argue. His jaw worked, his hands opening and closing. Then he seemed to deflate, all the bluster draining out of him. This isn't over, he muttered. Yes, Luca said softly. It is. Ryan turned and stalked to his car, a BMW that looked out of place in the circular driveway. He gunned the engine too hard, tires squealing as he accelerated away. Luca watched until the car disappeared beyond the gate. Then he turned to his security team. Make sure he actually leaves the area. If he comes back, call me immediately. Yes, sir. Only then did Luca look toward the library, where Ava still stood in the doorway. Their eyes met, and she saw his expression soften fractionally. Are you all right? Ava nodded, not trusting her voice. She was shaking, not from fear exactly, but from the adrenaline of confrontation, of watching Ryan reduced to nothing by a few quiet words. Luca crossed to her. He won't be back. How can you be sure? Because he's a coward. Cowards only fight when they're certain they'll win. He's not certain anymore. Luca glanced at her cast. Come, let's have that dinner Rosa's been preparing. You look like you could use a drink. Dinner was served in a smaller dining room than the formal one Ava had glimpsed yesterday. The table could seat 12 but was set for 2, candles flickering between them. Rosa had prepared something Italian, pasta with a sauce that smelled like heaven. Luca poured wine for both of them, a red that probably cost more than Ava's monthly rent used to. She took a larger sip than she'd intended, trying to calm her nerves. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Luca said. I should have anticipated he'd try to find you. How did he know I was here? He probably didn't, not for certain. But I'm not exactly unknown in Chicago. If he asked around about who might have resources to hide someone, my name would come up. Luca twirled pasta on his fork with practiced ease. It doesn't matter. He knows now that approaching you here is pointless. Ava pushed food around her plate. What you said to him about making his life difficult. What did you mean? Do you really want to know? She considered. No, maybe. I don't know. Luca's lips quirked in something that might have been amusement. I meant that I have ways of making people uncomfortable. Business deals that fall through, connections that suddenly dry up. His father's firm represents several clients who do business with my companies. If I were to suggest that continued association might be problematic, well, he shrugged. People make choices based on their interests. That's blackmail. That's leverage. There's a difference. Is there? Blackmail implies I have something to hide, something I'm ashamed of. I don't. I simply understand how power works in this city. Luca set down his fork and looked at her directly. Does it bother you? What I am? Ava thought about the question. Ryan had been a respectable lawyer, and he'd broken her. Luca was supposedly a criminal, and he'd saved her. Traditional morality seemed inadequate to process that contradiction. I don't know what you are, she said finally. Not really. I know what the newspapers say, but I also know that you've shown me more kindness in 2 days than anyone else has in 5 years. So maybe what you are doesn't matter as much as who you choose to be. Something flickered in Luca's dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. That's a generous interpretation. It's an honest one. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Ava found herself relaxing despite everything. The wine and food and safety combining to ease the constant tension she'd carried for so long. Tell me about yourself, Luca said eventually. Not about Ryan. About you. Who were you before him? The question caught Ava off guard. Who had she been? It felt like trying to remember someone else's life. I was a student, she said slowly. Art history major at Northwestern. I wanted to work in a museum, maybe curate exhibits someday. I loved Renaissance painting, the way artists could capture light and shadow, the way they could make canvas feel alive. The words came haltingly at first, then faster as memories surfaced. I used to spend hours at the Art Institute, just looking at paintings, studying the brushstrokes, imagining the artist's intentions. What happened? I met Ryan in my senior year. He was already working at his father's firm, visiting campus for recruitment. We started dating, and at first it was wonderful. He was charming, successful, seemed to have everything figured out. Ava took another sip of wine. After graduation, I was applying to museums, graduate programs, but Ryan convinced me to take a job at his father's firm instead, just temporarily, he said, until we got settled. The money was good, and I could always pursue my dreams later. But later never came. Later kept getting pushed back. There was always a reason. We needed to save for an apartment, or his career needed my support, or I was being selfish for wanting something that wouldn't contribute to our future together. Ava's voice hardened. By the time I realized what was happening, I was completely isolated. All my friendships from college had faded. My family thought I'd chosen Ryan over them. The job at the firm paid well but kept me dependent on his father's goodwill. I was trapped. Luca listened without interrupting, his attention complete and unwavering. The hitting started about 2 years in, Ava continued, surprised at how easily the words were flowing now. Maybe it was the wine, or the safety, or just the desperate need to tell someone. Just once at first. He apologized, cried, swore it would never happen again. I believed him. Then it was twice. Then it became normal. And somehow I convinced myself it was my fault. If I just didn't argue so much, didn't provoke him, didn't question his decisions. It was never your fault. The certainty in Luca's voice made Ava's eyes sting with unshed tears. I know that now, or I'm trying to know it. But 5 years of being told you're the problem, that you're too sensitive or too difficult or too something, it gets inside your head. Yes, Luca said quietly. It does. Something in his tone made Ava look up. You said your mother was in a similar situation. She was. My father was complicated. Brilliant and charismatic, but violent when he drank, which was often. Luca's jaw tightened. After he died, she finally told me things I'd been too young to understand when it was happening. The fear, the isolation, the way he'd convinced her that leaving would mean losing everything, her children, her home, her dignity. Sound familiar? Very. She survived because someone finally helped her. A man named Marco, who worked for my father and felt guilty about what he'd enabled. He made sure we had protection, resources, a way out. Luca's eyes were distant, looking at something Ava couldn't see. I was too young to help her then, but I'm not anymore. When I can be Marco for someone else, I am. Ava felt something shift in her understanding of the man across from her. That's why you gave me your card that day in the rain. You saw something. I saw someone who was afraid, who flinched when I approached too quickly, who apologized for things that weren't her fault. Luca's gaze refocused on her. I've seen that look before. I know what it means. And you just give your card to random women you think might need help? Not random, and not often, but when I recognize the signs. He shrugged. Yes, sometimes they call. Most don't. You did. I didn't think you'd answer. I always answer. They finished dinner as the candles burned lower. Rosa appeared to clear plates and bring espresso and small pastries that melted on the tongue. She fussed over Ava's cast, making sure she was taking her pain medication, then disappeared again with a knowing smile. She likes you, Luca observed. She's very kind. She's very particular. She ran this household for my mother when I was young, came with me when I established my own home. She doesn't warm to people easily, but when she does, her loyalty is absolute. He smiled slightly. Consider yourself approved. Later, Luca walked Ava to the library and pulled several books from the shelves. Art history texts, museum catalogs, exhibition reviews. I thought you might want these, he said, to remember who you were, who you still are, underneath everything Ryan tried to take from you. Ava cradled the books against her chest with her good arm, blinking back tears. Thank you. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building your new life in earnest. But sleep didn't come easily that night. Ava lay in the enormous bed, mind churning with questions and possibilities. What did she want? Not what Ryan had wanted for her, not what her parents had expected, not what safety or fear demanded. What did Ava want? The question was both liberating and terrifying. She thought about museums, about standing in front of paintings and feeling that connection to something larger than herself. She thought about independence, about having her own apartment where no one monitored her movements or questioned her choices. She thought about therapy, about unpacking 5 years of trauma until she could breathe without that constant weight on her chest. And she thought about Luca, the strange, dangerous man who'd shown her more respect in 2 days than Ryan had in 5 years. The next morning brought Margaret Reeves, the lawyer, with a stack of papers. Restraining order filed, Margaret announced briskly. Given the evidence and the emergency circumstances, the judge granted a temporary order immediately. Full hearing is scheduled for next week, but I don't anticipate any problems. Ryan's lawyer already contacted me about a settlement discussion. Settlement? Ava blinked. But I haven't sued him for anything. Not yet. But his lawyer is smart enough to see where this is headed. Medical bills, pain and suffering, possibly criminal charges. They want to head it off at the pass. Margaret's smile was sharp. Which gives us leverage. We can negotiate for what you actually want. Assurance that he'll leave you alone permanently. What kind of assurance? A legally binding agreement. He stays away from you, doesn't contact you directly or through intermediaries, doesn't badmouth you to employers or mutual acquaintances. In exchange, you agree not to pursue civil damages or push for criminal prosecution. Everything documented, everything enforceable. Ava looked at Luca, who'd been standing quietly by the window. What do you think? I think it's a good strategy. It gives you legal protection without the uncertainty of a trial. Ryan's father will want this settled quietly. Bad publicity damages the firm's reputation. They'll agree to reasonable terms. Define reasonable. Margaret laid out several documents. Complete separation. No contact of any kind. He forfeits any claim to belongings you left in the shared apartment. I'll arrange for movers to collect your things while he's not present. He agrees not to interfere with your employment, though frankly, I recommend finding a new job anyway. I was planning to. Good. I'm also recommending a substantial cash settlement to cover your immediate needs while you get back on your feet. New apartment, security deposit, living expenses while you look for work. Given his family's resources and the strength of our case, I think we can push for 6 figures. Ava's head spun. 6 figures? I can't. You can and you will, Luca said firmly. He broke your arm, Ava. He terrorized you for 5 years. This isn't charity or greed. This is compensation for what he took from you. But won't that make him angrier? More determined to... His anger is irrelevant now. He has no power over you anymore. Luca crossed the room to stand beside her chair. This is about making sure you have resources to rebuild. That's not optional. Margaret watched this exchange with interest, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Mr. Romano is right. This settlement serves multiple purposes. Yes, it provides financial support, but it also establishes legally that Ryan wronged you, that he owes you restitution. That matters psychologically as much as practically. Ava studied the documents, her mind struggling to process this new reality. A week ago, she'd been hoarding grocery money in a hidden envelope, desperately saving for an escape that seemed impossible. Now lawyers were talking about 6-figure settlements and permanent restraining orders. Okay, she said finally. Do it. Margaret nodded approvingly. I'll have the settlement proposal drafted by tomorrow. Ryan's lawyer is motivated to resolve this quickly. I expect we'll have an agreement within the week. After Margaret left, Ava found herself alone with Luca in his study. The room was lined with books and art, a Caravaggio that was either an excellent reproduction or worth millions, she couldn't tell which. That painting, she said, desperate to think about something other than Ryan and settlements and her shattered life. Is it real? Luca glanced at the dramatic chiaroscuro of the Caravaggio. Yes, I acquired it through a private sale several years ago. It's beautiful. The way he uses light and shadow, the emotional intensity. Ava stepped closer, studying the brushwork. Caravaggio was a violent man, did you know? He killed someone in a brawl, had to flee Rome, but his paintings are some of the most emotionally honest works ever created. All that darkness and violence in his life, somehow translated into this truthfulness on canvas. Perhaps pain makes us honest, Luca observed. When we've seen the worst of ourselves or the world, pretense becomes pointless. Ava turned to look at him. Is that why you don't pretend about what you do? Why you didn't try to convince me you're just a legitimate businessman? Would you have believed me? No. Then why bother lying? Luca moved to stand beside her, both of them looking at the painting now. I've done things I'm not proud of. I've hurt people, made choices that prioritized power over principle. I don't apologize for most of it. It was necessary, and I'd make the same decisions again, but I don't pretend to be something I'm not. And what are you? He considered the question. Practical. Loyal to those who earn it. Ruthless with those who threaten what's mine. Not a good man, perhaps, but one who keeps his word. That's more than most good men manage. Luca's lips quirked. Careful, you're starting to sound like you approve of me. Maybe I do. A little. They stood there in silence, looking at the Caravaggio. Ava found herself intensely aware of Luca's presence beside her, the warmth of him, the subtle scent of his cologne, the way he stood perfectly still in a way that suggested coiled energy rather than relaxation. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Always. Why aren't you married? Is there someone? Luca's expression turned sardonic. Are you asking if I have a wife who might object to a woman staying in my home? I suppose I am. No wife, no girlfriend, no entanglements. He paused. I've had relationships, but nothing serious. My life doesn't lend itself to domestic stability. Because of what you do? Because of who I am. The kind of woman I'd want. Intelligent, independent, strong, wouldn't tolerate being kept in a gilded cage for her own safety. And the kind of woman who'd accept that life, I wouldn't want. Luca shrugged. So I remain alone. It's simpler. Doesn't it get lonely? Sometimes, but loneliness is safer than vulnerability. Ava understood that more than she wanted to admit. What about family? You mentioned siblings. A brother and sister, both in Italy now. We talk occasionally, but we're not close. Too many old wounds, too much history. His voice was neutral, but Ava heard the sadness underneath. I'm sorry. Don't be. We all make choices. They chose distance. I chose this. He gestured vaguely at the study, the mansion beyond. A phone buzzed. Luca pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped into the hallway. Ava heard the low murmur of his voice, speaking Italian too quickly for her to follow. When he returned, his face was carefully neutral. Business? She asked. Always. He checked his watch. I need to go out for a few hours. Will you be all right here? Of course, I'm not helpless. I know you're not, but humor me. He pulled a business card from his desk drawer, different from the one he'd given her before, with multiple phone numbers. Call me if you need anything. Rosa's here, and my security team is on the grounds. You're safe. After he left, Ava wandered the mansion, trying to settle her restless energy. She found Rosa in the kitchen, kneading dough with practiced efficiency. Can I help? Ava asked. Rosa looked up, surprised. With what, dear? Whatever you're making, I'd like to do something useful. Rosa's face softened. You don't need to earn your keep here, child. I know, but I need to feel normal, capable. 5 years of having everything controlled makes you forget what it's like to just do things. Understanding flickered in Rosa's eyes. All right then, wash your hand, the one that works, and I'll teach you how to make proper Italian bread. For the next hour, Ava lost herself in the simple pleasure of creation. The dough was forgiving, responding to pressure and time, transforming under her good hand from sticky mess to smooth elasticity. Rosa guided her with patience, sharing stories of teaching Luca to cook when he was young. He was a serious boy, Rosa said, shaping her own loaf with expert hands. Always watching, always thinking. His father's death changed him, made him grow up too fast, but he was kind even then, especially to his mother. What was she like? Beautiful, sad. She carried ghosts with her everywhere. Rosa's expression turned distant. Luca promised her he'd never let anyone hurt people he cared about the way his father had hurt her. I think that promise shaped everything he became. He told me about Marco, the man who helped her. Marco was a good man in a bad business. He paid for his kindness. Luca's father's enemies made sure of that. But before he died, he made Luca promise to do the same for others when he could, to be the intervention he'd provided. Ava thought about that as she shaped her clumsy loaf. So this, helping me? It's about keeping promises to dead people. No, dear. Rosa covered the dough with a cloth. It's about being the man his mother raised him to be, despite everything else he's had to become. The bread rose and baked, filling the kitchen with warmth and yeasty comfort. When Ava pulled her misshapen loaf from the oven, she felt an absurd pride in its golden brown crust. It's perfect, Rosa declared. Tomorrow I'll teach you focaccia. Luca returned at sunset, looking tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. He accepted the slice of bread Ava offered with a faint smile. You've been learning from Rosa. She's a good teacher. The best. He ate slowly, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. This is good. Better than my first attempt. Mine was dense as a brick. They ate dinner together again, falling into a pattern that felt both strange and comfortable. Luca asked about her day, seemed genuinely interested in her bread-making tutorial. He told her about his business, carefully edited, she suspected, but honest about the challenges of managing complex operations. Do you ever wish you'd done something else? Ava asked. Chosen a different path? Luca considered. Sometimes, but wishing for a different past is pointless. I can only work with who I am now, what I've built. Who do you think you'd have been, if circumstances were different? A lawyer, maybe? Or an architect? I've always been drawn to the idea of building things, creating structures that last. His smile was self-deprecating. Instead, I became someone who operates in shadows and makes problems disappear. You help people too. That counts for something. Does it? Or is it just self-serving redemption for things I can't undo? The question hung between them, heavy with implications Ava wasn't ready to examine. Later, in her room, she found a package on her bed. Inside was a new phone, top of the line, already activated. A note in Luca's precise handwriting. So you're not cut off from the world. My number is already programmed in. L. Ava powered it on and stared at the empty contacts list. She could call her mother. After 4 years of silence, she could bridge that gap Ryan had created. Her finger hovered over the dial pad. What would she even say? Sorry I disappeared. I was trapped in an abusive relationship. I'm staying with a crime boss now, but don't worry, he's actually quite nice. She set the phone down without calling. Some bridges took more than a phone call to rebuild. Instead, she opened the browser and searched for job listings at museums. The Art Institute was hiring for an assistant curator position, entry level, but a start. The Museum of Contemporary Art needed a coordinator for their education programs. Smaller galleries throughout the city advertised for various roles. She could do this. Build a new life. Become the person she'd almost been before Ryan erased her. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Lucas stood in the doorway, changed from his suit into casual clothes that made him look younger, more approachable. I saw your light on. Everything all right? Ava gestured at the phone. Thank you for this. I was just trying to figure out where to start. Start small. One call, one application, one step at a time. He leaned against the doorframe. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither are new lives. Is that how you did it? After your father died, after everything changed? More or less, I focused on what I could control, protecting my mother, keeping my siblings safe, building something stable. Everything else came gradually. Ava looked at him, really looked. Under the expensive clothes and controlled demeanor, she saw someone who understood what it meant to rebuild from ruins. Thank you, she said quietly, for all of this. I know I keep saying it, but then stop. You don't owe me gratitude, Ava. You owe yourself a future. Focus on that. After he left, Ava lay in bed and let herself feel something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Tomorrow she'd start applying for jobs. Next week the settlement would be finalized. Soon she'd have her own apartment, her own life, her own choices. The broken arm would heal, the fear would fade. And maybe, eventually, she'd become someone she could be proud of. Outside, the city lights glittered like promises waiting to be kept. The settlement papers arrived on Thursday morning, delivered by Margaret Reeves with the satisfied expression of a predator who'd cornered her prey. $200,000, Margaret announced, spreading the documents across Luca's dining table. Plus the restraining order made permanent, forfeiture of all shared property, and a confidentiality clause that prevents him from discussing you or the settlement publicly. Ava stared at the number until it stopped looking like real digits. 200,000? His lawyer tried to lowball at 50. I countered at 300. We settled in the middle. Margaret's smile was razor sharp. Marcus Brennan wanted this buried quickly. The firm can't afford whispers about domestic violence in the senior partner's family. Bad for recruitment, bad for client relations. So they paid. When do I sign? Whenever you're ready, but read it thoroughly first. Make sure you understand what you're agreeing to. Luca appeared in his doorway, coffee in hand. He must have just showered, his hair was still damp, and he wore a casual shirt instead of his usual suits. It made him look younger, less intimidating. Margaret, he greeted. Everything in order? Perfect order. Your recommendations were very helpful in structuring the terms. She glanced between them with open curiosity. This is probably the smoothest settlement negotiation I've ever conducted. Ryan's lawyer was almost desperate to close the deal. Fear is a powerful motivator, Luca said mildly. Margaret gathered her papers. I'll leave you to review everything. Call me when you're ready to sign, Ava. We can finalize this by Monday. After she left, Ava read through the settlement agreement slowly, Luca sitting across from her in patient silence. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was clear. Ryan would pay for what he'd done, and in exchange, Ava would move on with her life and never speak his name in public again. It feels like letting him off easy, she said finally. Does it? Luca's tone was neutral. He's paying $200,000, lost you permanently, has a restraining order that will follow him for years, and knows that any violation will bring consequences far beyond legal ones. His father's firm will watch him like a hawk now. His reputation among people who matter is damaged beyond repair. That's not getting off easy. But he's not in jail. He's not. Jail would require a trial. A trial would require you to testify, to relive everything publicly, to be cross-examined by lawyers whose job is to make you look unstable or vindictive. It would take months, maybe years. And there's no guarantee of conviction. Luca leaned forward. This way, you get compensation, legal protection, and freedom to rebuild without being trapped in the legal system for the next year. That's not mercy to Ryan. It's mercy to yourself. Ava looked down at the papers, feeling the weight of the decision. You think I should sign? I think you should do whatever gives you peace. If that means pursuing criminal charges, I'll support that too. But if this settlement lets you close this chapter and move forward, he shrugged, then yes, I think you should sign. She picked up the pen Margaret had left, feeling its weight in her hand. With 2 signatures and a date, she could end this. No more Ryan, no more fear, no more looking over her shoulder. Ava signed. Good, Luca said quietly. Now the real work begins. The real work started with an email. Ava sat in the library with her new phone, staring at the message she'd drafted to the Art Institute's hiring manager. Her finger hovered over send for 5 full minutes before she finally pressed it. Done? Luca asked from the doorway. He'd been giving her space but checking in periodically, like he knew how hard this was. Application submitted, along with 3 others. Ava set the phone down with shaking hands. I haven't applied for a job in 5 years. What if I'm not qualified anymore? What if they look me up and find out about Ryan and Ava? Luca crossed the room and sat beside her on the leather sofa. They're not hiring Ryan. They're hiring you. Your degree, your knowledge, your passion for art. That hasn't changed. Everything's changed. Not the parts that matter. He gestured to the art books scattered around her. She'd been studying them obsessively for days, relearning things she'd forced herself to forget. You can still look at a painting and see things other people miss. That's a gift. Ryan couldn't take that from you. Ava wanted to believe him. She picked up one of the books, a catalog from a Renaissance exhibition, and opened it to a marked page. See this Botticelli? Most people focus on the central figures, the obvious beauty. But look here. She pointed to a detail in the corner. The way he's painted the fabric, the shadow falling across this fold. It tells you about the light source, the time of day, the weight of the material. Everything in the painting is connected. Every detail matters. You can read an entire world in those brushstrokes if you know how to look. So teach people to look. Luca's voice was soft. That's what museum curators do, isn't it? Help others see what they might have missed. Yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. That's exactly what they do. Then you'll be excellent at it. Something in his certainty made Ava's throat tight with emotion. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry. She'd cried enough over the past 5 years. These tears would be different. Relief, gratitude, hope. But she still didn't want to fall apart in front of him. Luca seemed to sense her struggle. He stood, giving her space. Rosa's making lunch. Come eat when you're ready. That afternoon, Ava's phone rang. An unknown number. Her heart seized. What if it was Ryan calling from a different phone to bypass the restraining order? What if... Hello? Is this Ava Carter? A woman's voice, professional and warm. Yes? This is Diana Reeves from the Museum of Contemporary Art. I received your application this morning for the education coordinator position. I was hoping we could schedule an interview? Ava's brain short-circuited. I'm sorry, did you say interview? Diana laughed. Yes. Your background is exactly what we're looking for. And frankly, anyone who can write a cover letter that passionate about arts education deserves a conversation. Are you available tomorrow afternoon? Yes, absolutely. What time? They set the appointment for 2 o'clock. After Ava hung up, she sat frozen for a moment, unable to process what had just happened. Then she was on her feet, running down the stairs, bursting into the kitchen where Luca sat with Rosa, going over household accounts. I got an interview, the words tumbled out. Tomorrow. At the Museum of Contemporary Art, they actually called me back. Rosa clapped her hands together, beaming. Luca's smile was quieter, but no less genuine. Congratulations, he said. I knew you would. You couldn't have known. I just sent the application 3 hours ago. I knew, he repeated, because you're brilliant and passionate and exactly what any museum would be lucky to have. Ava felt her face flush. I need to prepare. Research the museum's programs, review their current exhibitions, prepare answers to likely questions. What do I wear? I only have the clothes from your closet and nothing is interview appropriate and… Breathe. Luca stood and caught her good hand. You have 24 hours. That's plenty of time. We'll go shopping this afternoon, get you something professional. Then we'll practice interview questions over dinner. You'll be ready. We'll go shopping? Ava repeated. You don't have to… I want to. Besides, Rosa claims I have terrible taste and need a woman's perspective. He grinned at Rosa, who sniffed indignantly. I said no such thing. I said you dress like a funeral director. Same thing. They took the SUV into the city, the driver navigating through midday traffic with practiced ease. Luca directed him to Michigan Avenue, where the high-end boutiques lined the street like jewels in a crown. We're not going anywhere too expensive, Ava protested as they pulled up in front of a designer store. I can't afford… Consider it an investment in your future. Luca opened the car door. You need interview clothes. You'll get the job, which means you'll need professional attire for work. This is practical, not indulgent. The saleswoman recognized Luca immediately, her professional smile becoming genuinely warm. Mr. Romano, wonderful to see you. How can we help you today? My friend needs interview attire, something professional but not stuffy. She's applying to museums. The woman, her name tag read Claire, turned her attention to Ava with sharp, assessing eyes. I have some perfect pieces. What's your size? An hour later, Ava stood in front of a three-way mirror wearing a charcoal suit that fit like it had been made for her. The jacket was tailored to her shoulders, the pants breaking perfectly over low heels. She looked competent, professional, like someone who belonged in a museum. That's the one, Luca said from the chair where he'd been patiently watching her try on outfit after outfit. It's too much. Look at the price tag. Don't look at the price tag. Look at yourself. His eyes met hers in the mirror. You look like someone who knows her worth. That's priceless. They bought the suit, along with 2 blouses and a second outfit for future interviews. Luca added a leather portfolio without asking, ignoring Ava's protests. You'll need something to carry your resume and references, he said. This is non-negotiable. In the car ride back, Ava held the shopping bags and tried to process the surreal turn her life had taken. A week ago, she'd been trapped in a bathroom with a broken arm. Now she was riding through Chicago in a luxury SUV with shopping bags full of designer clothes, preparing for a job interview at a museum. Thank you, she said quietly, for all of this. I don't just mean the clothes. Luca glanced at her. I know what you mean. Why are you so invested in my success? He was quiet for a moment, watching the city slide past the window. Do you know what it's like to watch someone die slowly? Not from illness or age, but from losing themselves piece by piece until there's nothing left but a ghost wearing their face? Ava's throat tightened. Your mother. She survived. She escaped. But she was never whole again. The woman who laughed and sang and filled every room with light. He killed that woman long before Marco helped us leave. Luca's jaw was tight. I spent my whole life watching her shrink, watching her apologize for existing. By the time she was free, she'd forgotten how to be anything else. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't become her. Don't let what Ryan did define the rest of your life. He turned to face her fully. You're smart and talented and stronger than you know. I'm invested in your success because I want to see you become everything you were meant to be before he tried to destroy you. That's all. Ava's eyes stung. What if I can't? What if I'm too broken? You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. His voice was firm. And you're not alone in the process. That evening, they sat in Luca's study and ran through practice interview questions. He'd researched the Museum of Contemporary Art thoroughly, printed out information about their programs and recent exhibitions. Tell me about your interest in contemporary art, he prompted, playing the interviewer. Ava took a breath. Contemporary art challenges viewers to think differently, to question assumptions about what art is and what it can communicate. It's not about technical skill alone. It's about ideas, about using visual media to explore complex themes in accessible ways. I'm drawn to work that bridges the gap between artistic vision and public engagement, which is exactly what arts education should do. Good. Confident without being arrogant. Luca made a note. Next question. You've been out of the field for 5 years. Why should we hire you instead of a recent graduate? This was harder. Ava's first instinct was to apologize, to make excuses. She forced herself to reframe. I bring a unique perspective. I've experienced what it's like to lose touch with the things that make you feel alive, and I've fought to reclaim them. That struggle gives me insight into why arts education matters, not as abstract enrichment, but as something essential to being fully human. I can connect with visitors who think art isn't for them, because I've been in that dark place where nothing feels accessible, and I can help bring them back. Luca's expression was unreadable. That's good. Really good. Use that answer. They practiced for another hour before Rosa interrupted with dinner. Over pasta and wine, the conversation drifted to lighter topics. Luca's opinions on various artists, surprisingly informed, Ava's favorite exhibitions from her student days, debates about whether contemporary art would be remembered in 100 years. Some of it will, Ava argued. The pieces that capture something essential about our moment in history, just like Renaissance art captured its era. Not just the aesthetics, but the philosophy, the worldview. Contemporary art that does that will endure. And the rest? Will be footnotes. But that's true of every era. We only remember the exceptional pieces. Everything else fades. Luca smiled. You're going to do brilliantly tomorrow. They'd be fools not to hire you. That night, Ava laid out her new suit with the care of a soldier preparing armor. She reviewed her notes until the words blurred together. She practiced answering questions in the mirror until she felt ridiculous. Finally, exhausted, she collapsed into bed. Sleep was elusive. Her mind kept spinning through worst-case scenarios. What if she froze during the interview? What if they asked about Ryan? What if she wasn't ready for this after all? Around midnight, she gave up and wandered downstairs. The mansion was quiet, most lights off. But a glow came from under the study door. She knocked softly. Luca? Come in. He sat at his desk, paperwork spread before him, glasses perched on his nose. Ava had never seen him wear glasses before. They made him look scholarly, approachable. Can't sleep? He asked. Too nervous. Understandable. He set down his pen. Want to talk about it? Ava sank into the chair across from him. What if I'm not ready? What if 5 years away from the field means I've lost whatever edge I had? What if you're brilliant and they love you and you get the job? Luca interrupted gently. Those scenarios are equally possible. Why assume the worst? Because hoping hurts more when it doesn't work out, and not hoping guarantees you've already failed. He removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I understand the impulse to protect yourself, Ava, but you can't build a new life from a place of fear. Eventually, you have to risk hoping again. Is that what you do? Hope? Luca's smile was sad. No. I plan, I strategize, I control what I can. Hope requires trust I don't have. But that's my limitation, not yours. You're capable of more. You trust me. I do. Why? You barely know me. He considered the question seriously. I know that you survived 5 years of hell and still have compassion in your eyes. I know that you look at art with the kind of joy most people reserve for love. I know that you're brave enough to rebuild from nothing. That's enough. Ava felt something shift in her chest, a wall crumbling, a door opening. You're a good man, Luca Romano. I don't care what the newspapers say. The newspapers are mostly accurate. I'm dangerous, ruthless, and morally compromised by any conventional standard. He paused. But with you, I choose to be better. That counts for something. It counts for everything. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of unspoken things hanging between them. Finally, Ava stood. I should try to sleep. Long day tomorrow. Ava, Luca's voice stopped her at the door. You're going to be extraordinary. I believe that completely. His certainty wrapped around her like armor. Thank you. Sleep came easier after that. The Museum of Contemporary Art occupied a striking building on East Chicago Avenue, all clean lines and glass. Ava arrived 15 minutes early, her new portfolio tucked under her arm, her heart hammering against her ribs. Diana Reeves was younger than Ava expected, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes and a warm handshake. She led Ava through the museum's administrative offices, asking casual questions that felt like stealth assessment. The interview itself lasted an hour. Diana and two other staff members asked about Ava's educational background, her approach to arts education, her ideas for engaging diverse audiences. Ava drew on everything she'd practiced with Luca, but also let her genuine passion show through. When Diana asked about the gap in her employment history, Ava took a breath and chose honesty over fabrication. I was in a relationship that became unsafe. It took me longer than it should have to leave, and when I finally did, I had to rebuild everything from scratch. That experience taught me about resilience and the importance of finding things that anchor you when life becomes unstable. For me, that was art. It reminded me who I was underneath everything. That's why this work matters to me, not as an abstract concept, but as a lifeline. The room was silent for a moment. Then Diana nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest. That can't have been easy to share. It wasn't, but I'm learning that hiding from the truth doesn't make you stronger. Facing it does. After the interview, Diana walked Ava back to the entrance. We have 2 more candidates to interview, but I'll be in touch by early next week. You did really well today. Thank you. This place is incredible. It is, Diana smiled. I hope we'll be seeing you again. Ava walked out into the afternoon sun feeling lighter than she had in years. She'd done it, faced her fear, answered honestly, showed them who she was. Whether she got the job or not, she'd proven to herself that she could do this. Her phone rang as she reached the corner. Luca. How did it go? I think it went well, really well. I knew it would. Are you ready to be picked up? Actually, I think I'll walk for a bit. It's a beautiful day. There was a smile in his voice. Take your time. I'll see you at home. Home. The word settled over her strangely. Luca's mansion wasn't home, she knew that, but it was the closest thing she'd had to safety in 5 years. Eventually, she'd need to leave, to find her own space. But not yet. Not until she was ready. Ava walked along Michigan Avenue, looking at the city with new eyes. The buildings seemed less oppressive, the crowds less threatening. She was just another person going about her day, no one watching or controlling or questioning her movements. She stopped at a cafe and bought herself coffee. A small luxury, but hers alone. Sat at an outdoor table and people watched, savoring the simple freedom of existing without fear. Her phone buzzed with a text. An unknown number. Her stomach dropped. Ryan? But the message read, Ms. Carter, this is Margaret Reeves. The settlement has been finalized and the funds transferred to the account we established for you. Congratulations on your freedom. $200,000, sitting in an account with her name on it. Money that meant options, independence, security. Ava stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she stood, threw away her empty cup, and started walking toward the train that would take her back to Luca's neighborhood. She had a settlement. She had an interview that went well. She had people who believed in her. She had, for the first time in 5 years, a future that belonged to her alone. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. When she arrived back at the mansion, she found Luca in the garden, reviewing documents on a tablet. He looked up when she approached. You walked home? Took the train, actually. Felt like being normal for a while. Ava sat on the bench beside him. Margaret texted. The money's been transferred. Good. That's settled then. I could start looking for apartments now. Get out of your hair. Luca set down the tablet. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. That's the problem. Ava's voice cracked slightly. For 5 years, someone else decided everything. What I wore, where I went, who I talked to. Now I have all this freedom, and I don't know what to do with it. So take your time figuring it out. There's no rush. I can't stay here forever. Why not? Luca's expression was serious. I'm not asking you to, but you don't have to leave before you're ready either. Get the job first. Build some stability. Then decide where you want to live. That could take weeks. Then it takes weeks. He shrugged. I have the space. You're not a burden. Stay as long as you need. Ava looked at him. This complicated, dangerous man who'd shown her more kindness than she'd known existed. Why are you so good to me? I told you. I know what you told me. About your mother, about Marco, about keeping promises. But it's more than that, isn't it? Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Maybe it is. Maybe somewhere in this arrangement, I started caring about more than just keeping old promises. Maybe watching you find your strength again has been, he paused, searching for words, meaningful, in ways I didn't expect. Ava's breath caught. Luca? Don't. He held up a hand. I'm not asking for anything. You need space to heal, to find yourself again. I understand that, but I won't lie and pretend this is purely altruistic anymore. You matter to me, Ava, as a person, as someone I admire. That's the truth. The admission hung between them, charged with implications neither was ready to fully examine. You matter to me too, Ava said quietly. More than I probably should allow, given everything. Given everything, Luca agreed. They sat in silence as the sun dropped lower, painting the garden in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere in the house, Rosa was preparing dinner. The security team made their rounds. Life continued in its rhythms, but something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of connection that went beyond gratitude or obligation. It should have frightened Ava, getting close to someone, trusting them with her fragile, rebuilding heart. But sitting beside Luca in the fading light, she felt safe enough to let that fear exist without drowning in it. Come on, Luca said eventually, standing and offering his hand. Rosa will scold us if we're late for dinner. Ava took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. His fingers lingered against hers for a moment before releasing. They walked back to the house together, not touching but somehow connected. Two damaged people finding unexpected healing in each other's company. Behind them, the garden settled into evening. Ahead, through the lit windows, Rosa moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, preparing a meal for the strange little family they'd somehow become. Ava didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether she'd get the job, where she'd eventually live, how she'd continue rebuilding her shattered life. But for now, in this moment, she had enough. She had safety. She had hope. She had Luca's quiet strength beside her. It was more than enough to keep moving forward. The call came on Monday morning while Ava was helping Rosa prepare breakfast. Her phone buzzed on the counter, Diana Reeves's name appearing on the screen. Ava's hands went still over the bowl of eggs she'd been whisking. Answer it, Rosa urged, wiping flour from her hands. Ava picked up the phone with trembling fingers. Hello? Ava, it's Diana. I hope I'm not calling too early. Not at all. Good. I'll cut to the chase. We'd like to offer you the education coordinator position. The team was unanimous. Your passion and perspective are exactly what we need. The whisk slipped from Ava's other hand, clattering into the bowl. Really? You're offering me the job? Diana laughed warmly. Really? I know the salary isn't spectacular for Chicago, but it's a foot in the door. We can discuss details this week if you're interested. Interested? Yes, absolutely. I'm very interested. Wonderful. Can you come by Wednesday to go over paperwork and meet the rest of the education team? Wednesday is perfect. After she hung up, Ava stood frozen in the kitchen, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. She had a job, a real job in her field, doing work she actually cared about. Well, Rosa demanded. I got it. They offered me the position. Rosa let out a delighted cry and pulled Ava into a hug, careful of her casted arm. I knew it! Wait until Mr. Romano hears what? Luca appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day in one of his impeccable suits. I got the job, Ava said, and saying it aloud made it real. At the Museum of Contemporary Art, they just called. Something shifted in Luca's expression, pride, satisfaction, something softer she couldn't quite name. Congratulations. When do you start? We're meeting Wednesday to discuss details. Diana mentioned the salary isn't great, but it's a start. The beginning of everything else. He crossed the kitchen and took her good hand, squeezing gently. This is excellent news, Ava. You should be proud. I am, terrified but proud. Good. Fear means you care about doing it well. He released her hand, though his touch lingered in a way that made her skin warm. We should celebrate. Dinner somewhere special tonight? Rosa made a shooing motion. Go, both of you. I'll pack a lunch for the picnic. Picnic? Ava blinked. Mr. Romano's idea. Rosa said with a knowing smile. He mentioned yesterday that if you got good news, you should spend the day doing something normal, something that has nothing to do with lawyers or settlements or the past, just being young and happy. Luca had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I may have suggested that. I think it's a wonderful idea, Ava said softly. They took the SUV north along the lake, the driver following Luca's directions to a private beach access that probably required connections Ava didn't want to examine too closely. The day was unseasonably warm for early spring, the sun bright against the still cold water. Luca carried the basket Rosa had packed while Ava spread the blanket on the sand. It felt surreal, sitting on a beach with a man who probably had a dozen more important things to do, eating gourmet sandwiches and fruit while waves lapped at the shore. Tell me something, Luca said, stretching out on the blanket with unusual casualness. What's the first thing you want to do with your new life? Not practically, buying an apartment, starting the job. I mean, something purely for yourself. Ava considered the question. I want to take a class, something completely impractical and just for fun. Maybe pottery or dance or cooking. Something I choose just because I want to, not because it serves any purpose beyond making me happy. That's a good answer. Luca bit into an apple, considering. You should do it. Sign up for a class this week. What about you? If you could do something purely for yourself, what would it be? He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the lake. I'd travel, not for business, not meeting with associates or managing operations, just seeing things. Art museums in Florence, old libraries in Prague, standing in front of buildings that have survived centuries and feeling that continuity with the past. What's stopping you? My work doesn't allow for that kind of absence. Too many pieces in motion, too many people depending on me to hold things together. He smiled without humor. I built a cage of responsibilities and locked myself inside. Very efficient, very limiting. Maybe you could take small trips, weekends away, long enough to breathe but short enough not to disrupt everything. Maybe, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Ava watched the water, feeling the tension that had lived in her shoulders for 5 years slowly unknotting. The sun was warm on her face. The sand was soft beneath her. She had a job and a future, and a man beside her who made her feel seen in ways she'd forgotten were possible. Luca, she said eventually. Thank you for this. For knowing I needed a day of being normal. He turned his head to look at her, his dark eyes unreadable behind sunglasses. You deserve normal days, Ava. You deserve happiness that doesn't have to be earned or justified. I want you to remember that. The intensity in his voice made her chest tight. I'm trying to believe it. Keep trying. It gets easier. They stayed at the beach until the sun began its descent, talking about everything and nothing. Books they'd loved, places they'd been, small memories from childhood that felt precious in the telling. Luca was surprisingly easy to talk to when he let his guard down, his dry humor emerging in unexpected moments. As they packed up the picnic supplies, Ava's phone buzzed. An unknown number, but the area code was familiar. Her mother's town. She stared at the screen, frozen. Everything all right? Luca asked. I don't know. It might be my mother. Ava's thumb hovered over the answer button. She hadn't spoken to her family in almost 4 years, not since Ryan had convinced her they were toxic influences who didn't understand their relationship. Do you want to answer it? I don't know what I'd say. The phone stopped ringing. A moment later, a voicemail notification appeared. Ava listened to it with shaking hands, Luca standing close enough to offer silent support without crowding her. Her mother's voice, older and more uncertain than Ava remembered. Ava, honey, it's Mom. I know it's been a long time, and I don't even know if this is still your number, but I heard from Margaret Reeves's office about the settlement. I know I probably don't have any right to call after all this time, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't fight harder when you pulled away. Sorry I let that boy convince you we didn't love you. If you're ready to talk, I'm here. If not, I understand. I needed you to know that I love you. I never stopped. The message ended. Ava stood perfectly still, tears streaming down her face. Luca didn't say anything. He simply pulled her against his chest, one hand settling gently on her back while she cried into his expensive suit jacket. She wants to talk, Ava said when she could speak again. After 4 years of silence, she wants to talk. Do you want to call her back? I don't know. What if it's too late? What if too much damage was done? Or what if it's not too late? Luca's voice was gentle. What if some bridges can be rebuilt if both people are willing to try? Ava pulled back, wiping her eyes with her good hand. When did you become an optimist? I'm not, but I know regret, and I know what it costs to leave things unsaid. His expression was serious. You don't have to call her today or this week, but don't let fear make the decision for you. If there's any part of you that wants that relationship back, explore it. You might be surprised. That evening, Ava sat in her room with her phone, staring at her mother's number. Finally, before she could overthink it further, she pressed dial. 3 rings. 4. Then, hello? Mom, it's Ava. The sound her mother made was half sob, half laugh. Oh, sweetheart, you called back. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. Ava's voice cracked. I'm sorry for everything, for disappearing, for believing him when he said you didn't care, for wasting so much time. Stop. None of this was your fault. I should have seen what he was doing, should have fought harder to reach you. I failed you, Ava. I'm the one who's sorry. They talked for an hour, filling in 4 years of silence with halting honesty. Her mother cried when Ava told her about the abuse, about the broken arm, about finally finding the courage to leave. Ava cried when her mother shared how many times she'd driven to Chicago, sat in her car outside Ava's apartment building, too afraid of making things worse to actually knock on the door. I want to see you, her mother said eventually. If you're ready, no pressure, just, I want to see your face, know you're really okay. I'd like that too. Maybe next weekend? I'm starting a new job this week, and I need to get settled, but next weekend is perfect. I'll come to Chicago. You can show me your new life. After they hung up, Ava sat in the quiet of her room, feeling lighter and heavier all at once. She'd reclaimed another piece of herself, her mother, her family history, a connection she'd thought was lost forever. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Luca stood in the doorway, his expression questioning. How did it go? Good. Really good. We talked for an hour. She's coming to visit next weekend. Ava smiled through fresh tears. I have my mother back. I'm glad. He leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. You're rebuilding piece by piece, your career, your family. Soon you'll have everything you need to stand on your own. Something in his tone made Ava look at him more closely. That sounds like you're preparing for me to leave. Aren't you? Eventually? Eventually, yes, but not yet. Not until... She trailed off, unsure how to finish that sentence. Until what? Until I'm ready. Until I know who I am without someone else defining me. Until I can stand on my own without being afraid I'll collapse. Ava stood, crossing to where he stood. And maybe until I understand what's happening between us. Luca's expression shuddered. Ava, don't tell me there's nothing happening. We both feel it. This thing that's growing between us, whatever it is. You're vulnerable right now. You're rebuilding your life, finding your footing. The last thing you need is to get tangled up with someone like me. Someone like you, Ava repeated. You mean someone who saved me? Who's been kinder and more respectful than anyone I've known? Who makes me feel strong instead of weak? Someone who's dangerous, who operates outside the law, who has enemies and complications you can't begin to imagine. His voice was firm. You deserve normal, Ava. A safe, boring life with a safe, boring man who comes home at 5 and has never made anyone disappear. What if I don't want safe and boring? What if I want someone who sees me as an equal, who challenges me to be stronger, who understands darkness because he's lived in it too? Then you want in fantasy, Luca said quietly. I'm not a good man playing at being bad. I'm genuinely dangerous. I've hurt people, made choices that would horrify you if you knew the details. The fact that I choose to be decent to you doesn't erase that. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be honest about what's between us. Luca was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You want honesty? Fine. I care about you. More than I should, more than is wise. Watching you find your strength has been the most meaningful thing I've experienced in years. When you smile, when you get excited about art or talk about your future, I feel something I thought I'd lost the capacity for. Hope, maybe, or just basic human connection. He stepped closer, his eyes intense. But caring about you doesn't change what I am. It doesn't make me safe or suitable or anything you should tie yourself to. You're just starting to be free, Ava. Don't trade one cage for another. You're not a cage. Not yet. But I could be. My life, my world, it consumes everything it touches. I won't do that to you. Ava reached up with her good hand, touching his face gently. He flinched slightly at the contact, but didn't pull away. What if I'm stronger than you think? What if I can make my own choices about what risks are worth taking? Then choose carefully, Luca said. Because once you're in my world, leaving becomes complicated. Is that a threat? It's a warning. From someone who cares enough to want you to have all the information before you make decisions you can't undo. They stood close enough that Ava could feel his warmth, see the conflict in his dark eyes. He wanted her, that was clear, but he was fighting it, trying to protect her from himself. I should go, he said finally, stepping back. You have a big week ahead. You need rest. Luca, good night, Ava. He left before she could respond, his footsteps fading down the hallway. Ava stood alone in her room, her hand still tingling from touching his face, her heart racing with emotions she couldn't fully name. She'd thought Ryan had complicated her life, but this, whatever was developing between her and Luca, was infinitely more complex. Ryan had been simple cruelty dressed as love. Luca was genuine care wrapped in danger. The question was, which was more frightening? Wednesday came too quickly. Ava arrived at the museum wearing her new suit, her resume and references in the leather portfolio Luca had bought. Diana greeted her warmly and spent the morning introducing her to the education team, walking her through the programs she'd be coordinating, explaining expectations and goals. The salary was indeed modest, enough to live on in Chicago if she was careful, but nothing extravagant. Ava signed the paperwork with hands that only shook slightly, officially becoming a museum employee for the first time in her life. You start Monday, Diana said. That gives you a few days to get settled. Do you have questions? 1,000 questions, but none Diana could answer. No, I think I'm good. Excellent. Welcome to the team, Ava. I have a feeling you're going to do great things here. On her way out, Ava stopped in front of a large abstract painting in the museum's main gallery. Bold strokes of color crashed against each other, violent and beautiful simultaneously. A small plaque identified it as part of their permanent collection. Reconstruction by an artist Ava didn't recognize. She stood there for a long time, seeing her own life in those aggressive brushstrokes. Everything broken apart, colors bleeding into each other, chaos slowly finding a new order. Her phone buzzed. A text from Luca. How did it go? Official start date Monday. I'm employed. Congratulations. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Ava hesitated. After their conversation the other night, things felt charged between them, uncertain. But she missed him, missed the easy companionship they'd found before emotions complicated everything. Dinner sounds good. He took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood she'd never explored. No flashy entrance, no obvious security, but the owner greeted Luca like family and led them to a private table in the back. You own this place, don't you? Ava guessed. My cousin Antonio owns it. I'm just an investor. Luca smiled slightly. He makes the best ossobuco in Chicago. You'll see. The food was indeed extraordinary. They ate slowly, talking about Ava's first day, the projects she'd be working on, her nervous excitement about starting Monday. What about you? Ava asked eventually. How was your day? Complicated, but manageable. That's vague. It needs to be. He refilled her wine glass. I told you, my work isn't something I share details about. Because it's dangerous, or because you think I can't handle it. Because keeping you separate from that part of my life keeps you safe. Luca's expression was serious. The less you know about my business operations, the less you can be implicated if things go wrong. Things like what? Things you're better off not imagining. Ava set down her fork. You keep pushing me away, drawing these boundaries. But you also keep looking at me like I'm something precious you're afraid to touch. Maybe you are. I'm not fragile, Luca. I survived Ryan. I survived 5 years of systematic destruction. I'm stronger than you give me credit for. I know you are. That's what terrifies me. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. Because if you're strong enough to handle my world, then I have no good reason to keep my distance. And keeping my distance is the right thing to do. Why? Because you've decided you're bad for me? Because I know I am. Shouldn't I get a say in that decision? Luca was quiet for a moment, studying her face. What do you want from me, Ava? Honestly. The question hung between them, loaded with implications. Ava took a breath, choosing her words carefully. I want honesty. I want to know you. Not just the part you show me, but the real you. I want to understand what you feel, what you want, what scares you. She paused. And I want permission to feel what I'm feeling without you telling me it's wrong or dangerous or a mistake. And what are you feeling? Drawn to you. Grateful? Yes, but also curious. Attracted. Safe in a way I've never experienced before. Ava's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I'm not saying I want to rush into anything. I'm not even sure I'm ready for a relationship yet, but I want the option to explore what's between us without you making the decision for me. Luca's dark eyes were intense on hers. You're asking me to let you walk into danger knowingly. I'm asking you to trust me to make my own choices, even the risky ones. He reached across the table, taking her good hand in both of his. His touch was warm, solid, grounding. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. My life is complicated and often dangerous, and being close to me means accepting that. I understand. I don't think you do, but if you're determined to find out, he squeezed her hand gently, then I'll stop pushing you away. I'll let this develop however it's going to develop. But the moment it becomes too much, the moment you want out, you tell me. No questions, no guilt. You walk away, and I let you go. Deal? Deal. They finished dinner in a different kind of silence, charged with possibility instead of tension. When they left the restaurant, Luca's hand settled on the small of Ava's back, a casual intimacy that sent warmth through her. In the car, she leaned against his shoulder, exhausted but content. His arm came around her naturally, holding her steady as the driver navigated Chicago's streets. Thank you, she murmured. For what? For trusting me to make my own choices, even the complicated ones. Luca's lips brushed the top of her head, so gentle she might have imagined it. Don't thank me yet. You might regret this. I don't think I will. We'll see. Back at the mansion, they stood in the foyer, neither quite ready to say goodnight. The space between them felt electric, full of unspoken possibilities. I should let you rest, Luca said. Big week ahead. Right, yes. But Ava didn't move. Neither did he. Ava, she kissed him before he could finish the sentence, rising on her toes to press her lips to his. For a heartbeat, he was perfectly still. Then his arms came around her, careful of her casted arm, and he kissed her back with the intensity that stole her breath. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce and honest, and everything she hadn't known she needed. His hands tangled in her hair, holding her close like she was something precious and dangerous all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. That was a terrible idea, he said. Probably. We should be smart about this. Take things slow. Definitely. I'm going to kiss you again. Good. This time was slower, deeper, a promise and a question wrapped together. Ava's good hand fisted in his shirt, anchoring herself against the dizzying sensation of falling towards something both terrifying and inevitable. When they finally separated, Luca's expression was dazed. We really should talk about this, set boundaries, figure out what we're doing. Tomorrow, Ava agreed. Tonight, can we just... He smiled, a real smile, warm and unguarded. Yeah, we can do that. They sat in the library for hours, talking and kissing and learning each other in the quiet dark. Luca told her about his childhood in Italy, the mother he'd loved and couldn't save, the weight of responsibilities he'd shouldered too young. Ava shared memories from before Ryan, the girl she'd been who believed in happy endings and uncomplicated love. Somewhere around midnight, Ava fell asleep against his shoulder. Luca carried her to her room, settled her into bed still fully clothed, and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sweet dreams, Ava Carter, he whispered. You're braver than you know. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. Luca, I'm not afraid of you. I thought you should know that. In the darkness, she heard his quiet response. Maybe you should be. But he didn't sound convinced anymore. Morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and golden. Ava woke still wearing yesterday's clothes, the memory of Luca's kiss lingering on her lips like a secret. She touched her mouth gently, half convinced she'd dreamed the entire evening. But no, the flutter in her chest was real. The warmth spreading through her at the thought of him was real. Everything was changing, faster than she'd anticipated. A week ago, she'd been focused solely on survival and rebuilding. Now she was contemplating letting someone in, allowing herself to feel things she'd thought Ryan had destroyed forever. Her phone showed a text from Luca, sent an hour ago. Good morning. I have meetings all day, but wanted you to know last night wasn't a mistake. We'll talk when I'm back. L. Ava read it 3 times, her smile growing with each pass. He wasn't running, wasn't pretending it hadn't happened, or claiming temporary insanity. He was facing it head on, the way he seemed to face everything. She dressed and went downstairs to find Rosa humming in the kitchen, kneading dough with practiced hands. Someone looks happy this morning, Rosa observed with a knowing smile. Do I? Like the sun finally came out after a long winter. Rosa's eyes twinkled. Mr. Romano left early, but he was smiling too. I haven't seen that particular smile in years. Ava felt her cheeks warm. We're just figuring things out. That's what they all say. Rosa shaped the dough into a loaf. He's a good man, you know, complicated, dangerous in his way, but good where it counts. He'll protect you fiercely if you let him. I'm trying to protect myself these days, stand on my own. Standing on your own doesn't mean standing alone, dear. There's a difference. Rosa wiped her hands on her apron. Now, you start that new job Monday. We should celebrate properly. What do you say to a dinner party this weekend? Your mother is visiting, yes? We'll make it special. The thought of her mother meeting Luca, of those two worlds colliding, made Ava nervous and excited in equal measure. That sounds wonderful. But Rosa, you don't have to… Hush. I want to. Besides, it's been too long since this house had real joy in it. You've brought light back to dark corners. Let me celebrate that. Ava spent the day preparing for her mother's visit, cleaning the guest suite Rosa had assigned for her, planning activities they could do together. The apartment hunting she'd intended to start could wait another week. Right now, she wanted to focus on rebuilding the relationship she'd lost. She was reviewing the museum's orientation materials when the doorbell rang. Rosa answered it, and a moment later appeared in the library doorway, looking troubled. There's someone here to see Mr. Romano. Says it's urgent business. Luca's not here. I know, but this man insists on waiting. He's… Rosa lowered her voice. He's the type Mr. Romano deals with in his other life. I don't like him being here while Mr. Romano is away. Ava stood, uncertain. Should I call Luca? Already did. He's on his way back. Rosa hesitated. The man asked about you, by name. Ice slid down Ava's spine. What did he say? Asked if you were still here, if you and Mr. Romano were close. I told him to wait outside, but a crash from the direction of the foyer cut her off. Both women rushed toward the sound. A man stood in the entrance hall, mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. 2 of Luca's security team were trying to escort him out, but he'd apparently shoved past them, sending a decorative vase to the floor in pieces. I said I'll wait inside, the man said calmly. I have business with Romano, and I'm not standing on his doorstep like some errand boy. Sir, you need to leave, one of the security guards repeated. Mr. Romano will contact you when he's available. The man's eyes found Ava standing in the hallway. His smile was unpleasant. You must be the girlfriend. Ava Carter, right? The one Romano pulled out of that domestic situation? Ava's blood ran cold. How did this stranger know about her? About Ryan? I think you should leave, she said, keeping her voice steady. I'm sure you do. But Romano and I have unfinished business, and I find that men are more cooperative when their priorities are clear. He took a step toward her. You're a priority, aren't you, sweetheart? The security team moved between them instantly, but the threat hung in the air like poison. "You're making a mistake," one of the guards said quietly. "A serious one. The only mistake is Romano thinking he can back out of our arrangement because he's playing house with some broken girl." The front door slammed open. Luca stood in the entrance, and Ava had never seen him look like this, utterly calm on the surface, but radiating a danger so intense the air seemed to crackle with it. "Vincent!" One word, spoken softly, but everyone in the room went still. "You have 10 seconds to explain why you're in my home threatening someone under my protection." Vincent's bravado faltered slightly. "I wasn't threatening, just having a conversation. 9 seconds. Look, Romano, we had a deal. You were supposed to move the shipment through your warehouses, but now I hear you're backing out. 8 seconds. I'm just trying to understand if this is business or if you're letting personal entanglements cloud your judgment." Luca moved so fast, Ava almost missed it. One moment he was by the door, the next he had Vincent by the throat, slammed against the wall with controlled violence. "Let me be very clear," Luca said, his voice deadly quiet. "You don't come to my home. You don't involve civilians in business disputes, and you never ever threaten her. Are we understanding each other?" Vincent's face was turning red. He managed a strangled nod. Luca released him, stepping back. "Our deal is terminated. I'll return your deposit by end of business tomorrow. Find someone else to move your product. You can't just—" "I can, and I did. Now get out. If I see you anywhere near this property again, if I hear you've so much as spoken Ava's name, I will make you regret every decision that led to this moment." Luca's expression was arctic. "And Vincent? I'm very creative when it comes to regret." Vincent straightened his suit with shaking hands, trying to salvage some dignity. "This isn't over, Romano. You don't walk away from deals with my organization without consequences." "Then there will be consequences. I'll handle them." Luca gestured to his security team. "Escort Mr. Vincent off the property. Make sure he understands he's not welcome back." After Vincent was removed, Luca turned to Ava. The cold fury drained from his expression, replaced by concern. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" "No, I'm fine, just shaken." Ava's hands were trembling. "Who was that?" "Someone I shouldn't have done business with in the first place." "My mistake." Luca ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking tired. "Come on, we need to talk." They went to his study. Luca poured himself a whiskey, offered one to Ava. She accepted it, needing something to steady her nerves. "This is what I meant," Luca said quietly, staring into his glass. "This is the reality of my world. Dangerous men with dangerous agendas, and anyone close to me becomes a potential target or leverage point. He knew about me. About Ryan. Information is currency in my business. People find out things, use them as tools." He looked at her, his expression pained. "I'm sorry you had to experience that. I should have anticipated Vincent might try something like this." "What did he want? What deal were you backing out of?" Luca was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "Vincent runs a smuggling operation. High-end art, antiquities stolen from war zones, that sort of thing. He wanted to use my warehouses as temporary storage before moving pieces overseas. I agreed before—" He gestured vaguely. "Before you. Before I started thinking about what kind of man I want to be versus what kind I've been." Ava absorbed this. "You're backing out because of me?" "I'm backing out because that particular business crosses lines I'm not comfortable with anymore. Smuggling weapons or drugs. That's one thing. But stolen art, pieces with historical and cultural value being sold to private collectors who will hide them away forever." He shook his head. "You made me remember why those things matter. I can't be that person and be someone worthy of you." "Luca, let me finish." He set down his glass and crossed to her. "Vincent won't be the last person who tries to use you to get to me. My enemies will see you as a weakness, something they can threaten or hurt to make me bend. That's the reality of being close to me. And I need you to understand that before we go any further." Ava stood, meeting his eyes directly. "I understand. I'm not naive enough to think dating you would be simple or safe. But I'm also not fragile enough to break at the first sign of danger. You shouldn't have to deal with danger at all. You've had enough. Stop deciding what I can handle." Her voice was firm. "Yes, Vincent scared me. But Ryan terrified me every single day for 5 years. The difference is, with you, I'm not facing the threat alone. You protected me. Your team protected me. That's not weakness. It's strength. Luca cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. You're extraordinary. You know that? I'm learning to believe it. He kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something precious he was afraid of breaking. Ava melted into him, her good arm wrapping around his neck, anchoring them together. When they separated, Luca rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, Ava Carter. Probably have been since that rainy day when you looked at me like I was a mystery you wanted to solve. I'm falling for you too, even though you're complicated and dangerous and completely wrong for me on paper. Especially because of those things? Maybe, she smiled. I'm done with safe and conventional. It didn't protect me before. At least with you, the danger comes with honesty. I'll always be honest with you. That's a promise. Then honestly, what happens now? With Vincent and his organization? Luca's expression hardened slightly. I handle it. Make it clear that backing out wasn't negotiable and that you're completely off limits. Vincent will bluster and threaten, but ultimately he'll back down. Men like him understand power, and I have more of it than he does. And if he doesn't back down, then I'll make sure he regrets the choice. Luca's voice was cold. I told you I'm not a good man, Ava. When someone threatens what's mine, I don't play fair. The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered her. Instead, it sent a thrill through her, being claimed by someone who actually valued her, who would fight to keep her safe instead of tearing her down. I trust you, she said simply. Don't trust me too much. I'm still capable of terrible things. I know, but you're also capable of extraordinary kindness. Both things can be true. The weekend arrived with a mixture of anticipation and nerves. Ava's mother was driving in Saturday morning, and Rosa had been preparing for the dinner party all week with an enthusiasm that was both touching and slightly overwhelming. Ava was arranging flowers in the guest suite when Luca found her. Nervous? He asked. Terrified. My mother hasn't seen me in 4 years. What if she doesn't like who I've become? What if meeting you makes her think I've traded one bad situation for another? Then we'll show her that's not true. Luca took the flowers from her, setting them aside so he could hold her hands. Your mother wants to see you happy and safe. We'll demonstrate both. You make it sound simple. It is simple. We're just two people who care about each other, navigating complicated circumstances. That's a story she can understand. The doorbell rang at 11. Ava's heart jumped into her throat as she heard Rosa greeting someone in the foyer, then her mother's voice, familiar and beloved after years of silence. Ava, sweetheart, where are you? Ava rushed to the entrance, and there she was, older than Ava remembered, more gray in her hair, but the same warm eyes and gentle smile. Mom. They crashed together, both crying, 4 years of distance dissolving in an instant. Her mother held her tight, careful of the casted arm, murmuring words Ava couldn't quite make out through her own sobs. When they finally pulled apart, her mother cupped Ava's face, studying her intently. Let me look at you. Are you really okay? I am, better than I've been in years. Her mother's gaze found the cast. Margaret told me some of what happened. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that I let that boy— Mom, stop. None of this was your fault. Ryan manipulated both of us. But I should have fought harder, should have— Her mother stopped as Luca appeared in the hallway, clearly giving them space but checking on Ava. Ava saw her mother take in his expensive suit, his commanding presence, the way he looked at Ava with open concern. Protective instincts flared in her mother's eyes. Mom, this is Luca Romano. Luca, my mother, Patricia Carter. Luca extended his hand. Mrs. Carter, Ava's told me wonderful things about you. I'm glad you could visit. And Patricia shook his hand warily. Mr. Romano, I appreciate you, helping my daughter in her time of need. It was my honor. Luca's tone was respectful, not at all the cold authority Ava had heard him use with Vincent. Please, make yourself at home. Rosa has prepared the guest suite for you. Ava can show you around, and we'll have lunch when you're ready. He excused himself tactfully, leaving mother and daughter alone. Patricia watched him go, then turned to Ava with questioning eyes. He seems intense. He is. But he's also been incredibly kind to me, Mom. He's not what you're probably thinking. And what am I thinking? That I've jumped from one controlling man to another. Ava took her mother's hand. Come on, let me show you the guest suite and we can talk. I'll tell you everything. Over the next few hours, Ava shared the full story. The abuse, the escape, Luca's intervention, the settlement, her new job. She watched her mother's expressions shift from horror to relief to cautious hope. And you and Mr. Romano... Luca, you're involved romantically? Patricia asked carefully. We're figuring it out. I know it seems fast, but Mom, he's nothing like Ryan. He doesn't try to control me or isolate me. He encourages my independence, helps me build my own life. He's complicated, and yes, probably dangerous in his own way, but he's honest about it. And he treats me with more respect than anyone ever has. Patricia was quiet, processing. I just don't want to see you hurt again, sweetheart. You've been through so much. I know, and I'm being careful, I promise. But I'm also letting myself feel things I thought Ryan killed in me. Hope, attraction, trust. That has to count for something. It does. Patricia squeezed her hand. I just want you to be happy and safe. I'm both. For the first time in years, I'm both. The dinner party that evening was intimate. Just Ava, her mother, Luca, and Rosa, who insisted on being included as family rather than staff. The dining room glowed with candlelight, and Rosa's cooking was extraordinary as always. Ava watched her mother slowly warm to Luca as the evening progressed. He was charming without being overbearing, asking about Patricia's life, her work, sharing stories about his own mother that clearly resonated. He was careful not to be too familiar with Ava in front of her mother, respecting the delicacy of the situation. Over dessert, Patricia finally addressed the elephant in the room. Mr. Romano, Luca, I need to ask you something directly. Of course. What are your intentions toward my daughter? Luca didn't flinch from the question. To support her as she rebuilds her life. To help her become the person she was meant to be before circumstances derailed her. And if she'll allow it, to be part of her future in whatever capacity she's comfortable with. That's very diplomatic. It's honest. Luca glanced at Ava, then back to Patricia. I care deeply for your daughter, but I'm also aware that she's in a vulnerable transition period. I won't push her into anything she's not ready for. Her healing and independence come first. Even if that means stepping back? Especially if that means stepping back. Patricia studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, I can respect that. She turned to Ava. You seem happy, sweetheart. Really happy. That's what matters. After dinner, Ava walked her mother to the guest suite. At the door, Patricia pulled her into another hug. I missed you so much, Patricia whispered. Every day I wondered if you were okay, if I'd ever see you again. I missed you too, Mom. I'm sorry I let Ryan convince me you didn't care. Never again. Promise me, no matter what happens, you won't let anyone cut you off from family again. I promise. Patricia pulled back, smiling through tears. He's good for you, isn't he, Luca? Yeah, he really is. Then I approve. Cautiously, but I approve. Patricia touched Ava's face gently. Just promise me you'll keep choosing yourself first. Don't lose who you are for anyone, even someone who treats you well. I won't. I'm learning what that means finally, choosing myself. Over the next few weeks, Ava's new life took shape with increasing solidity. She started her job at the Museum of Contemporary Art, throwing herself into programming with enthusiasm her colleagues found infectious. Diana praised her fresh perspectives, her ability to connect with visitors who felt intimidated by contemporary art. Her mother visited twice more, their relationship rebuilding through long phone calls and shared meals. Patricia met Ava's coworkers, saw the apartment listings Ava had started seriously considering, witnessed her daughter's growing confidence. The cast came off after 6 weeks. Ava stared at her bare arm, flexing fingers that felt strange after so long encased in fiberglass. The doctor pronounced her healed, prescribed physical therapy to rebuild strength. It'll be good as new eventually, the doctor assured her. You might have some residual stiffness, but with therapy you'll regain full function. Luca had driven her to the appointment, waited patiently through the examination. As they left the hospital, Ava held up her arm, examining it in the afternoon light. Strange, isn't it? She said. Physical evidence of that night just gone, like it never happened. But it did happen. Luca took her newly freed hand, and you survived it. That scar you can't see anymore? It's proof of your strength. I prefer to think of it as proof I'm moving forward. That too. They had dinner that night at the Italian restaurant where Luca's cousin Antonio greeted them like family. Over wine and pasta, Ava made a decision she'd been contemplating for weeks. I'm ready to look for an apartment seriously. Not because I want to leave, she added quickly, seeing Luca's expression shift, but because I need to prove to myself I can do this, stand completely on my own. Luca was quiet for a moment. I understand. Do you? Because you look like I just said I'm moving to another country. I told you from the beginning, when you're ready to stand on your own, I'll help you do it. I meant that. He reached across the table, taking her hand. But that doesn't mean I won't miss having you under the same roof. I'll miss it too. Rosa's cooking alone is worth staying for. Ava smiled. But this is important. I need to know I can support myself, make a home that's truly mine. Then we'll start looking this weekend. What kind of place do you want? They spent Saturday touring apartments across the city. Most were too expensive, too small, or in neighborhoods that felt wrong. Ava was getting discouraged when the realtor showed them a studio in a renovated building near the museum. It was small but charming, exposed brick, tall windows, a tiny kitchen that somehow felt cozy rather than cramped. The building had security, the neighborhood was safe, and Ava could walk to work. What do you think? The realtor asked. Ava stood in the center of the space, turning slowly. She could picture her life here, books on those shelves, her bed by that window, morning coffee in that kitchen, a life that was completely, utterly hers. I love it. The application process was straightforward with Luca's connections, though Ava insisted on using her own income and savings for the deposit. She wanted this to be something she'd accomplished independently. 2 weeks later, she signed the lease. The apartment was hers. Moving day was bittersweet. Ava hadn't accumulated much during her stay at Luca's mansion. Most of her belongings were still things from her old apartment that Margaret had arranged to retrieve. But Rosa insisted on sending her with kitchen supplies, linens, and enough food to stock her refrigerator for weeks. You come back for dinner anytime, Rosa said firmly, hugging Ava tight. This is still your home too. I will. I promise. Luca helped her move boxes, assemble furniture, hang curtains. As the afternoon wore on and the apartment took shape, Ava felt pride swelling in her chest. This was hers. She'd earned it, chosen it, created it from nothing. As evening fell, Luca prepared to leave. They stood at the door, neither quite ready to say goodbye to this chapter. Thank you, Ava said, for everything. For saving me, protecting me, giving me space to find myself again. You saved yourself, Ava. I just provided a safe place to land while you figured things out. You were more than that. You are essential. Luca pulled her close, kissing her softly. I'm proud of you. This apartment, your job, rebuilding your relationship with your mother. You've recreated your entire life in a matter of months, with a lot of help. But the strength was all yours. He touched her face gently. I'll see you tomorrow? Tomorrow. I'll cook you dinner. Prove I learned something from Rosa. After he left, Ava stood in her empty apartment, her apartment, and let herself feel the full weight of what she'd accomplished. 6 months ago, she'd been trapped in a bathroom, certain she was going to die. 3 months ago, she'd had nothing but a broken arm and borrowed clothes. Now she had a job she loved, an apartment that was hers, a mother who'd forgiven the lost years, and a man who treated her like she was extraordinary. She'd gone from surviving to living, from victim to survivor to something beyond both. She was simply Ava again, but a stronger version, one who knew her own worth. The next few months passed in a blur of contentment. Ava threw herself into her work, developing programs that brought art education to underserved communities. She took a pottery class at a community center, laughing at her lopsided bowls but loving the creative process. She had regular dinners with her mother, rebuilding their relationship one conversation at a time, and she fell more deeply in love with Luca Romano. They were careful with each other at first, both aware of the baggage they carried. But gradually, trust deepened into something more profound. Luca showed her parts of his world he'd kept hidden, Not the dangerous business, but the legitimate enterprises he was slowly building. His plans to transition away from the shadowy edges of his empire. "I've been doing this so long, I forgot there were other options," he told her one night. "But watching you rebuild your life, choose a different path, it made me think I could do the same." "What would you do? If you could do anything?" "Architecture. Urban development that actually serves communities instead of displacing them." He smiled self-deprecatingly. "Probably naive, but I'd like to try." "Then try. You've spent your whole life building power and protection. Maybe it's time to build something beautiful instead." 6 months after moving into her apartment, Ava was offered a promotion, assistant curator, with a significant raise and more responsibility. She accepted immediately, calling Luca from the museum to share the news. "I'm so proud of you," he said, and she could hear the genuine joy in his voice. "We're celebrating tonight, somewhere special." He took her to the Art Institute, arranged a private tour after hours through his connections. They wandered the galleries in the quiet evening, Ava explaining the paintings she loved while Luca listened with focused attention. In front of a Monet, soft brushstrokes creating light from chaos, Luca turned to her. "I love you, Ava Carter. I've been trying to find the right moment to say it, but I realize there's no perfect time. I just love you, and I want you to know." Ava's heart swelled until it felt too large for her chest. "I love you too. Even though you're complicated and dangerous and still have connections I probably shouldn't ask about." "Especially because of those things?" "Maybe," she grinned, "but mostly because you're kind and loyal, and you see me, really see me, in a way no one else ever has." He kissed her there in the empty gallery, surrounded by masterpieces, and Ava thought about how far she'd come. From that broken bathroom floor to this moment of perfect happiness, she'd traveled an impossible distance. A year after that night in the bathroom, Ava organized a benefit at the museum, art therapy programs for domestic violence survivors. It was personal and terrifying and absolutely necessary. Luca donated generously, convinced several of his business associates to contribute. Her mother helped with planning. Rosa catered part of the event. The people who mattered most showed up to support her. During her speech, Ava stood before 100 people and spoke her truth. "A year ago, I was trapped, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. I'd forgotten who I was, what I loved, why I mattered. Leaving took every ounce of courage I had. Rebuilding took more." She paused, finding Luca in the crowd. He stood in the back, watching her with fierce pride. "But I learned something important. Strength isn't about never being broken. It's about choosing to heal, to grow, to become something new from the pieces. Art therapy gave me a way to process trauma, to express things I couldn't say aloud, to remember that beauty still existed in the world. I want every survivor to have that chance." The applause was thunderous. Ava stepped off the stage to find Luca waiting. "You were magnificent," he said. "I was terrified." "I know, but you did it anyway. That's what courage is." That night, back at her apartment, Ava stood at her window looking out at the city lights. Luca came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How strange life is. How one phone call can change everything. How the worst night of my life led to the best year." "Do you regret any of it? The pain, the difficulty?" Ava considered the question seriously. "I regret Ryan. I regret the years I lost, the person I became under his control. But I don't regret what came after. Leaving him, calling you, rebuilding from nothing. That taught me who I actually am when everything else is stripped away." "And who are you?" She turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. "Someone strong, someone worthy of love and respect, someone who can stand on her own but chooses to stand with you." Luca kissed her softly. "I'm going to marry you someday, Ava Carter. Fair warning." "Is that a threat or a promise?" "Both." "Good." She smiled against his lips. "But ask me properly first. I've earned a real proposal." "You've earned everything." His voice was serious. "I'll make sure you never doubt that again." 2 years after Luca carried Ava out of her nightmare, they stood in the garden of his mansion, their mansion now, though Ava kept her studio apartment as a reminder of what she'd built alone. The garden was filled with friends and family, Rosa beaming from the front row beside Patricia, who dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Ava wore a simple white dress, her hair loose, her arm, fully healed now, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Luca stood before her in a dark suit, looking at her like she was the most extraordinary thing he'd ever seen. "I didn't prepare vows," Luca said when the officiant gave him the floor, "because everything I need to say is simple. Ava, you taught me that redemption is possible, that people can change, grow, become better than they were. You took a cynical man who'd forgotten how to hope and showed him what it means to believe in something beyond power and control. I love you. I'll protect you. I'll stand beside you as you continue becoming the extraordinary person you were always meant to be. That's my vow, to honor your strength by being worthy of it." Ava's eyes shimmered with tears. "I didn't prepare vows either, but here's what I know. 2 years ago, I made a phone call from the worst moment of my life. You answered. You came. You gave me safety and space and belief when I had none left for myself. You didn't save me. I saved myself, but you gave me the chance to do it. You loved me when I was broken and celebrated me as I healed. You've never tried to control or diminish or change me. You just loved me exactly as I am. So my vow is this. I'll keep choosing myself, keep growing and building and becoming. And I'll choose you every day because you make me braver than I ever thought I could be." They exchanged rings, simple bands that felt like promises made tangible. When the officiant pronounced them married, Luca kissed her with a tenderness that made everyone in the garden either cry or cheer. The reception lasted into the night, filled with laughter and music and joy. Ava danced with her mother, with Rosa, with colleagues from the museum, but mostly she danced with Luca, his arms around her, his voice low in her ear telling her all the ways he planned to make her happy. Late in the evening, they stood on the terrace overlooking the garden, watching their guests celebrate below. "Happy?" Luca asked. "Deliriously. You?" "More than I ever thought possible." He pulled her closer. "Thank you for taking a chance on a dangerous man with a questionable past. Thank you for seeing past the broken parts to who I could become. You were never broken, just healing." Ava leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling complete in a way she'd never experienced. This was what love was supposed to be: partnership, respect, growth. Not control or fear or walking on eggshells, but two people choosing each other freely, celebrating each other's strength. "I love you, Luca Romano." "I love you, Ava Romano." He smiled at the new name. "Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" "It really does." They stood there together as stars emerged overhead, the city spreading out before them full of possibility and light. Ava thought about the girl in the bathroom, terrified and alone, making a desperate call to a stranger. She wished she could tell that girl what came next. The fear and pain, yes, but also the healing, the love, the life she'd build from ruins. She wished she could tell her, "You're stronger than you know. You'll survive this. And someday, you'll stand on a terrace with the man you love, completely free, and realize that the worst night of your life led you exactly where you were meant to be. But that girl had to find out for herself, just like Ava had to make the hard choices, do the difficult work of healing, learn to stand on her own before she could truly stand with someone else. The journey had been painful and terrifying and absolutely worth it, because now Ava Carter Romano stood in the life she'd claimed for herself. Successful career, loving family, a partner who celebrated her strength rather than trying to break it. She'd gone from victim to survivor to something beyond both. She was simply herself, fully and completely, with nothing left to prove and everything left to experience. And that, Ava thought, as Luca kissed her under the stars, was the truest freedom of all.